Welcome to the Dipshit Files, Episode 3. I am Mr. Scriptkeeper.
And I'm Mrs. Scriptkeeper.
And we've got ourselves a fun show for you today.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to explore two ladies who killed the fuck out of people.
Yep, yes, they did.
One of them is pretty well known, and one of them is not well known at all.
Nope.
One of them had a whole bunch of movies made about her, and she killed 7 folks. One lady had 0 people make a movie about her.
No.
Maybe
there was one movie.
Okay, one movie that nobody's ever heard of.
Yeah.
And she killed like 60 folks.
Yeah.
But she poisoned them, and so that's not as glamorous, perhaps,
Maybe.
or maybe as evil, but it's way evil.
It is ugly.
All right, we'll discuss it more on this 2-hour edition of the Dipshit Files.
Dipshit Files, go.
Dipshit Files.
All right, welcome to the Dipshit Files number 3.
Hello.
I am Mr. Scriptkeeper, and that little voice was Mrs. Scriptkeeper.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
I am wonderful. Happy Wednesday, everybody.
Happy Wednesday.
Yes.
We've
Hump
got-
day.
Hump day.
It's hump day.
Well, fuck yeah, get to it. Turn this off immediately and get to that, and then come back to this. But as you heard, we are talking about two ladies that did some serial killing. And one of them was claimed to be the serial killer, the first ever female serial killer.
That's the claim.
But she was
in
also...
the U.S.
In the U.S.
Yeah.
But she was also not.
Right.
So we're going to talk about that
Yeah.
as well.
I find this funny, and I'd like to know what they consider a serial killer. It seems to me if there was a man out there that was excessively poisoning, I don't know, 50, 60 people, he would be considered, maybe he's not a serial killer, maybe then he's a serial poisoner.
I guess, but you're doing it with
But
the
you're
intent to
killing
kill.
it. Exactly.
All the other ways of killing are well, you get to be a serial killer now.
Right.
That is kind of a weird double standard, isn't it?
It's a really weird thing, yeah.
I've never once thought of that, and I feel like I'd never once thought of that.
Well,
how could I have? I'm a dude. I'm like, fuck yeah.
Well,
yeah,
in
that's
our
a
first-
poisoner. That doesn't count. That's cheating.
Our first story is, it's the supposed very first official
She wasn't a poisoner.
female serial killer, where she killed 7 men consecutively, I
Right.
guess.
Serially.
Yeah, serially.
Right.
But she killed 7
For
men.
serial.
And she is considered a serial killer. The next story is somebody who killed over 50.
Jesus.
Not that long of a period of time, maybe 15, 20 years, and not even on the serial killer list.
Did she kill a bunch of dudes? Or was it mixed? Did she kill
It was
children?
mixed. No, it was men and women.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, so the names of the folk are Aileen Wuornos and Amy Dugan.
Yes, that is correct.
And it's really Amy Dugan's sister, Archer-Gilligan.
What a name.
And that's a fucking great name.
Yeah. The sister is a title, but yeah.
Right.
Which I find kind of funny.
So
Anyways,
there's a lot of crazy shit in this one.
there is. It's fascinating to me. And we're going to do Aileen Wuornos first
Right.
because, of course, I am a psycho when it comes to research, and I really had to rein myself in when it came to this.
There's a lot to this. This isn't a deep dive, but Monique
Right.
deep dove herself into it, so it might just come out that way.
Well, it's not. It's definitely, I can guarantee you, there is a bunch of shit missing because I had to take
There's
a
a
bunch of
7-part
stuff out.
19-hour podcast out
Exactly.
there somewhere that you can find all the information on her life.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff in here. There's a lot of stuff I wanted to put in here, but I don't want a 3-hour podcast on
Right.
one person.
And I've never heard a single bit of that. I mean, when I worked for TimeSuck, Aileen Wuornos came up, but we never sucked that topic.
Oh.
We never...
Okay.
I think I did a preview at one point in The Secret Suck.
Okay.
And that's the closest that I ever got to researching anything about her.
Oh, so you're going to learn
And
some stuff.
So I have zero information other than I know there was a movie.
Did you watch it?
No.
Oh,
I
I
just-
haven't seen the movie either.
I've only heard the things about, like how much she looked like the character. I remember
Right.
Charlize Theron was, I think she won awards for how much she
Best actress.
did to make herself look like
Right.
the lady. And that's all I know. And that she killed guys. And it was out of vengeance, right? It was out of...
Yes, and no.
Okay.
It depends on which angle you take.
Well, I want to take the right angle, the correct one.
Well,
so lead us to that.
That really depends. Okay, so are we ready? Want to dive in a bit?
I do. This is Dipshit number 1.
Dipshit number 1.
Aileen Carol Wuornos was born Aileen Pittman, February 29th, 1956 in Michigan, USA, to Leo Dale Pittman and Diane Wuornos. Leo Dale Pittman was diagnosed with schizophrenia. He was later convicted for raping a 7-year-old girl, and he committed suicide by hanging himself in prison January 30th, 1969.
I want to say good at that last bit, but
I wanted to throw in here, too, that Leo, her father, I think he was 17 or 18 years old when he impregnated Eileen's mom. And Eileen's mother was 14.
Ooh.
Yeah, so she was 14 when she had her.
He.
So around the age of 4, and Aileen never really got to know her dad at all. So around the age of 4,
that's probably a good thing.
Eileen's mother left her and her brother Keith with their grandparents Lori and Britta Wuornos, who eventually legally adopted them.
Which is also probably a good thing.
Yeah. So for the sake of this story, instead of saying Aileen and instead of saying Wuornos so many times, everyone called Aileen Lee.
Lee.
Yes. So if I use the term Lee, I'm talking about Aileen.
All right.
Okay.
Lee.
So odds are I'm going to say Lee a lot just because that's how she was referenced in so much research material. This kind of experience can sometimes lead to what they call like an attachment disorder, which can hinder or even ruin someone's ability to form long-term relationships, which is kind of fascinating.
Right.
That we're going to address later
is this
on.
Like dissociative identity disorder kind of stuff? Or?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. She was diagnosed with a lot of disorders. So,
okay.
Well, there's a few in there. So her grandparents were allegedly abusive and alcoholic both. And they chose not to tell Aileen or Keith that they were adopted until they were 12 years old. So these children, Aileen grew up thinking that her grandmother was her mom. So it's kind of an interesting situation here. Now,
it's like that Pearl Jam song, except for the grandma instead of
don't
the
call me
stepdad.
grandma.
No, that's not that one. But I like that one better.
Don't call me grandma.
I think so. Oh, I'm still alive here. Anyway,
Very dumb.
I'm breaking the song. I'm sorry.
Stupid dumb.
Okay.
Back to what you were saying that was totally interesting and people were listening to, and then I totally diverted the entire conversation because I'm a dumbass.
Now, there's going to be a little bit of confusion in here because I'm trying to. In her early life, it's very difficult to figure out what's real and what's not.
Right.
Aileen, at the very least, is a serial liar. So now, whether she's actually intentionally lying about things, it's really hard to say. But her stories never match and they don't stay the same. So it's difficult to really discover what actually happened in her childhood. So there's a lot of alleged stories, and the stories changed. Not all of them, but a lot of them did. So according to Lori Grody, which is Eileen's aunt, and Lori and Britta's natural daughter who grew up with Aileen. So Aileen, it was like her sister aunt.
Okay.
Lori, the dad, or Eileen's grandpa, would take away the Christmas presents that Lee got whenever they arrived from her mother, Diane. He would just take them away from her. And additionally, he also allegedly forced Aileen to watch him drown a cat.
Sheesh.
Which is terrible.
That sounds unbelievable, though.
Yeah.
Like, hey, come here, kid.
Right.
Let me show you something.
And
I saw you playing with dolls in there. Let me drown this cat for you. Is that similar to dolls? Do you feel like you want to drown cats for a living? I'm trying to help.
Shit.
I'm helping.
Well, I looked for proof that this stuff actually happened, and I had a very difficult. This is all hearsay.
Sure.
A very difficult time proving any of it. However, one thing was interesting. Lori, her grandpa, died of carbon monoxide poisoning. And it was unclear whether it was intentional or not. And he did that in his son's garage, partially through Eileen's history of being a bad person. Okay.
So it may have been Aileen.
No. There's mental health.
How old was Aileen then? Like,
I think she was in her 20s, 22-ish when he did that.
Where was she?
I think she was in Florida.
Oh, well, probably not doing that then.
Right. She wasn't in Michigan.
I don't know shit about this
anyways,
story.
That's all right.
Hey, I got another question from this is where they sell peanuts up in the back. It's Pyrite Field.
Well, I got notes here for more information there, and I just couldn't fill that space in.
Okay.
I looked, and I just unless I could pull up the death records and find out, but he died of carbon monoxide poisoning, which allegedly happened in the garage of his own son. So I'm assuming that he gassed himself in his car. Right. So
Thanks.
Anyway, and
that's a long way to go. Doesn't it take a long time to die that way?
Well, to die, yes. Carbon monoxide poisoning, depending on how much carbon monoxide there is in the air, it can be fairly quick.
Oh, really?
I do know there are lethal levels that happen fast. It can make you pass out.
But not from a car like that, right?
Not usually. Usually you end up with nausea and potentially vomiting and headache, and you feel terrible because of everything else that's in the room.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, anybody who's been accidentally gassed because they're working on a car and they smell the fumes in the garage knows what that headache feels like. Or spent a lot of time on a racetrack or.
Oh, I like that smell.
I love that smell.
I digressified you.
That's all right. I like the smell of petroleum products.
Petroleum products? All right.
Yes. So, as I was saying, it's really difficult to take Aileen or Lee for her on her word because some of the stories she told were just insane, and there's very little proof.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
What would you say? Is she
was
one of the worst kind of liars?
She has shown herself to be notoriously unreliable.
Fine. Fair enough.
Her grandfather was an alleged pedophile and sexually abused her from a young age. But I found no evidence of that. So there was no court, there was no cases, there was no police files.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. I want to take her on her word.
Sure, but she has a really bad track record of being a liar, liar, pants on fire.
Right. So
that's why she's in the dipshit file.
Yeah.
That's partly why she's in the dipshit
she
files.
also stated that she developed a sexual relationship with her brother.
Yikes.
Although her brother denies it.
Well,
she told many people this. I started at 11.
Is he the older brother? Is that the deal?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, he was born first.
Okay.
So, and he denies it. He's like, I don't know what the fuck she's talking about. But,
right.
You know, okay, so.
It's so hard to prove things.
And it says that I researched that she began engaging in sexual activities in school. And she exchanged drugs, food, smokes, that sort of thing for sexual favors. It began when she was 11, around the time that she allegedly began being abused by her grandfather and having sex with her brother.
Well.
However, there is proof. She became pregnant at the age of 14, and her grandparents moved her to a home for unwed mothers, and then her baby was given up for adoption.
Yikes.
She never even got to hold her child. She gave birth to her child, and they gave it up for adoption, which is probably good for that baby.
Yeah, yeah.
But it did nothing for Eileen's psyche. It really did nothing for that. Yeah.
Yeah, fuck.
So now...
So you're trying to set up the story that some of this came to her honestly.
Well,
It sounds like it to me. She was horribly abused.
Allegedly.
But at the very least was,
yes,
the
there was
14-year-old. But that was kind of the custom at the time.
Right.
Although this wasn't that long
This was
ago.
in the 60s, late 50s, early 60s.
Okay.
Right. So now this is where things start. She's 14, and this is where children normally start, pushing against. Kids start growing up a little bit, and they start pushing against authority.
Well, if you've brought a life into the world, you've grown up real fast, yeah.
So the story of her pregnancy is one of the few pieces of her backstory that's been corroborated, which, much like her past, is clouded with rumor and misremembering. This is that one little
spot where we can see this guy. Okay.
So the many retellings of her origin story claim Wuornos' brother Keith was the father of her child.
Whoa.
Yeah. From her mouth. She says, but while that's possible, there's a more likely and equally troubling explanation.
It was
the other story
the neighbor's
was
beagle.
The other versions allege that it was her grandfather's friend.
No. Well, I mean, for the gene pool,
right?
But it's still awful. I mean, I don't. There's no fun. I'll shut up now.
Well,
there's no humor to be had in this story, wife. Way to pick it. I feel terrible. I'm a fucking. I'm part of the patriarchy. If I say anything,
you are not.
I'll just be over here, just being a piece of shit.
So basically,
piece of shit.
Wuornos' best friend, her name was Dawn Bodkins.
Right.
She heard a lot of these stories.
As of course it would be.
Well, I say her name because I'm going to have to talk about her a little bit.
Sorry. It's just starting to sink in now that I'm, the lowest form of life. Go ahead.
So Dawn, her best friend, claims that Wuornos was raped and impregnated by a known pedophile. She says it was, the guy, first of all, Grandpa was supposed to be a pedophile. Yeah. And then his friend was supposed to be a pedophile.
Okay, Earth, what the fuck are we doing here? I mean, kids are supposed to be safe, right? Come on, let's do the best to make it safe for kids. What the fuck?
I'm not saying any of this actually happened, but this was the story.
Right.
So the quote from Dawn is, quote, "That guy raped her." Was like, that guy that raped her was like 60 years old and he loved all the kids.
God damn it.
Aileen was drunk and he'd take advantage of her and shit like that. So then she got pregnant. After she gave birth at 15, she named the boy Keith after her brother, which fueled the rumors even more that the baby was his. Her grandfather forced her to put the boy up for adoption and she never saw him again. So, this is the beginning.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
more tragedy to come.
Blah, blah, blah.
Alleged.
So, there's stuff here. While she never knew her father, she did grow up in this allegedly abusive alcoholic household with her grandparents, reportedly sexually assaulted by her grandfather.
There was the neighbor's beagle, as we previously discussed.
Nobody can really corroborate whether any of them were alcoholics. This is all Eileen's word.
Right.
So, and her claims that she began having sex with her brother at a young age are also uncorroborated and, of course, may not be true. The details of her upbringing change depending on which interview you read and who you watch. I mean, she's all over the board. She's told many people that her brother, that they were having sex a lot. So it's hard to say.
Right.
We do know she had a child. We don't know who the father is. We do know she named him Keith and gave him up for adoption. So the rumors began to fly.
Yeah.
So it is noted in several sources that Keith's friends spoke to investigators after the arrest, and they said, absolutely not. There's no way. He looked at her like a tag-along. He looked at her like that little pesty sister. So
that's on the surface, though. People could be monsters in their private time. Or in
of course.
Of course, yeah.
It's very difficult
Great
when there's
actors the sociopaths can be and psychopaths can be from time to time.
So moving on,
speaking for a friend, of course, I don't.
After her grandmother died, she was thrown out of the house by her grandpa. So she got pregnant, she gave up a baby, grandma died, she was thrown out. And this was about a year after, I think, so she's about 15. And it was at that time she started working as a prostitute to earn a living.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, so one part of her backstory that...
And what part of the world is this again?
This is in Michigan.
Michigan, that's right.
Yeah, it's really fucking cold there, by the way.
Yes, well...
And when she was thrown out, she was living in, abandoned cars and shit.
Damn.
Yeah, so one part of...
Is this like Detroit, Michigan? Does it say? It's like
Troy, I think.
Troy
is where she was born.
20 minutes to Detroit. Well, it's all cold.
It's freezing.
Well, Jesus. I don't know if it's all frozen. There's probably a really nice place.
I've tried 3 times to start this. One part...
Good luck, wife. Good luck. Godspeed, wife. Godspeed.
One part of Wuornos' backstory that isn't in question is that she began operating as a sex worker at a very young age. Wuornos claims she traded sex for money and cigarettes, and eventually she earned the nickname Cigarette Pig from the boys she had sex with in exchange for goods.
Boys are kind of cunty. Some boys.
Yeah, so
some.
At 15, the only place she could find to stay was in the woods near her grandfather's home. And this, of course, was in Michigan at some point during the fall or winter that this happened. And it was cold. She survived in the woods during the unforgiving cold, relying on abandoned cars and the kindness of clients who didn't mind providing shelter.
Jeez. That's a dangerous fucking life.
During her trial, analysts discovered Wuornos had several personality disorders, including borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. And they're saying that it is due to childhood trauma and abandonment issues is what they're attributing that to. even though there's no proof that any of this happened, she believed it did.
Yeah.
Which caused these, either that caused the mental issues, or she has the mental issues and she's living in a world of her own. Either way, it doesn't matter. She was mentally ill.
Well, real quick, yes, and the mental illness is probably, I mean, it really is a lot of the time just genetic.
Maybe.
So,
well, she didn't come from the best.
And same with being a pathological liar. I don't think that's something that you're just like, oh, I watched a movie and then my uncle was mean to me and then I fucking fell in a swimming pool and I got hurt. It's like, it's not that. I mean, PTSD will definitely cause things. And there's some unique things that can happen there. But most of this shit is genes. And it sounds like... It sounds to me like it's just, there's more evidence of just this shitty person that roamed around the world.
I don't...
Even with that nickname, it's like, well, fuck.
Right,
like,
I know
dudes
that...
are cunts. We are cunts. But we're generally not cunts to people that don't deserve to be cunts. Like, there's a justice system in the shitbaggery of male,
well,
toxic
and they talk
masculinity.
about this too,
Us toxic cunts.
Calm down.
Wuornos' declining mental health likely spearheaded her towards prostitution, robbery, assault, and serial murder. After being raped and assaulted during her course as a sex worker, she probably also suffered from PTSD.
Sure. Okay.
So,
fair enough.
And that's what they're saying here.
Right. I don't know anything about this, you guys. So if you're like very up on this and you're like, he's a fucking idiot. What is he saying? That's like, apologetics to a rapist. I'm not doing that. I'm trying to figure it out by also being a stupid person. I'm a stupid person.
Dumb.
Well, she moved to the woods as a teen and somehow managed to stay in school. She did continue to go to school for a little while until one story was that she was expelled. Another story, which is hers, was that she just quit and walked out. So...
Wait, she said she just quit.
Yeah, she says she quit.
But the school says
she was expelled.
I'm going to go with the school.
Right.
I'm going to go with that school there.
So now that is basically the childhood stuff. Okay. So I'm going to, that's the beginning. I'm going to move through her young adult life in, I've got kind of like a timeline format here that I'm going to kind of just tick things off to speed it up a little bit. There's so much here.
Right.
But
you had to cut down a lot of it.
I did.
But we're going to get kind of a good understanding of this person. And then we'll get to our, as you guys know, we'll do the Dipshit Files meter.
Yeah.
Whatever the fuck we're calling it.
Yeah.
At the end of this, and we'll figure it out. She's got a very interesting score, by the way.
Well, we know that, we do know that she was kicked out. She got pregnant at 14, gave up her baby. She was kicked out of the house. And at 15, she started doing sexual favors at the age of 11. She got pregnant, had a baby, was kicked out, and at 15 became an official sex worker.
The fact that
in order to survive. So we know that to be true.
If she was doing stuff at 11, that's adults doing stuff to her. It has to be.
It's the only explanation that I've got. It's got to be.
Empathy goes to that for sure.
Yeah. So moving forward, her early adult life and criminal involvement, I've got this lined out and I'm going to read it because it's a lot easier. There's a lot here.
Life of the Dipshit.
May 27, 1974, Jefferson County, Colorado. Wuornos was arrested for driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, and firing a handgun from a moving vehicle, but did not show up in court and was charged with failure to appear. That was the first official thing that happened, first official offense that she was charged with. Okay, so then Wuornos hitchhiked to Florida in 1976, 2 years later, where she met a 69-year-old yacht club president, Louis Gratz Fell. Okay, how old was she at this point? 22, I think. The two were married within a year. She got married. But Wuornos repeatedly involved herself in disputes at the local bar, leading to assault charges, and also hit her husband, Fell, with his own cane.
Yikes.
Driving him to seek a restraining order against her. Wuornos was not able to change her behavior in the way that was needed to live in a way closer to normal life, and the marriage was over in just 9 weeks. 9 weeks.
Well,
just a week over 2 months.
Doesn't sound like a match made in heaven, really.
Lee claimed that Fell was abusive towards her as well. So he was 69, she was 22.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so March 12th, 1976, Wuornos' grandfather kills himself.
Wait, real quick. It's interesting, but hot. That's hot.
What's hot?
I think that's hot.
What?
69 and 22, that's hot.
Yuck. God damn.
I just see you reading over there, all serious face. Yeah, ick. Go ahead.
So
But to each their own. No kink shaming.
March 12th, 1976, Wuornos' grandfather kills himself in the garage. So that's 1976 is when he did that. She was born in 1956, so she was 20 when she got married.
Right.
18 when she got married.
Okay.
She was 20 when her grandpa died. So
Okay.
now we have a timeline.
Okay.
July 14th, 1976, Antrim County, Michigan. Wuornos got into another dispute at a bar and threw a cue ball at a bartender's head.
Fuck yeah.
He pressed charges.
A lot of bartenders deserve cue balls to the head.
Within that same year, Lee's older brother
don't.
Keith died of cancer at the age of 21.
Jesus.
And she received $10,000 from his life insurance.
God damn.
Okay. That wasn't a legal thing, but that's adding to what we got going on here. 1978, at just 22 years old, she attempted suicide by shooting herself in the stomach with a .22 caliber pistol.
Fuck me running.
After she was rejected by a lover. She survived the attempt, but received very little psychological counseling. And just a short week after being discharged from the hospital, she attempted suicide again, this time by overdosing on tranquilizers. Again, she survived. Between the ages of 14 and 22, she attempted suicide 6 times.
Wow. So life was suffering for her.
She needed counseling, and she never got it.
Right. And
She never got it.
And, you know, how many counselors are out there saying, well, there's a lot that we try and do. And there's a lot, and we can do a lot for a lot of people.
She
but
needs
not
to,
everybody.
But she needed to be able to have access
At least
to
have a
that.
chance.
Give it.
Yeah.
She needed to get in there.
Right.
You know. So at the age of 25, Wuornos entered a relationship with a 52-year-old man named Jay Watts. This relationship represented the closest thing Lee ever had to a boyfriend, but the relationship only lasted 2 months.
So she's at 25 and she's dating a 50-year-old guy?
Yeah,
All right.
25. 52.
All right.
May 20th, 1981, Edgewater, Florida. Wuornos was arrested on charges of armed robbery. This is where things begin ramping up.
Okay, she's pissed at this point.
Yeah, she's like,
it.
fuck
I want-
this. Fuck all this. I can't even kill myself.
What's
right.
she stealing? Just money?
So, armed robbery when she stole 2 packs of cigarettes and $35 from a convenience store.
What?
She held them up at gunpoint
Just for
for
the thrill of it, I guess.
$35 and 2 packs of smokes.
Damn, dude.
She's
You should get a carton at least, or a couple cartons of smokes. You shouldn't have to do that again later the next day.
So she served a sentence
Damn.
in prison for this crime from May 4th, 1982 to June 30th, 1983. So just over a year she
Right.
was in prison. She claimed that she had robbed the store in order to find out if Watts really loved her. That was her claim. She did it to find out if he would stand by her side. He left her.
Yeah. Stand by your... No.
Yeah. He broke contact with her shortly after she began her prison sentence for robbery. I would too.
Yeah.
I'd be
I
like,
would be like,
woman,
that's-
no thanks.
It's like if you're looking for colored flags, it's like, well,
Yeah,
that's a
that
deep,
one-
dark red.
Yeah, that's
a
blood red.
I can see that one when I'm just coming over the hill. Like, fucking, are there any flags? Well, that's a fucking flag. That one in the middle there, I see other flags, but that one right there is very distinct. Like, that's
So-
like the national symbol for this whole area, I think. Go ahead. All right.
Her,
I'm done. Go ahead.
So from 1981 to 1984, there's nothing happened in her criminal history because she was incarcerated.
Waka waka, engage. Okay,
May
hold on.
1st, 1984, Key West, Florida. Wuornos was arrested after being caught trying to pass forged checks at a local bank.
So she's kind of got a variety of criminal ideas.
Yep.
She just doesn't give a shit about like legal systems and stuff.
Nope.
Cool.
She just does
All
her
right.
own thing. November 30th, 1985, Miami, Florida. Wuornos is charged with grand theft auto.
Sweet.
Yep. Resisting arrest and obstruction of justice for attempting to use her aunt's name to identify herself.
Oh, so she's just like a buffet of crimes. She's like a little this, little this.
Additionally-
Can I try some check fraud? Let's do that.
Additionally, police found a .38 caliber revolver and ammunition in the stolen car.
Well, you should have ammunition if you're going to have it.
I wonder if she said, "It's not mine.
Right. These aren't my pants.
These are
Those are someone else's
That's
pants.
not. It's not my gun. It belongs to the person whose car I stole.
Nice.
It was in here already.
Killing it.
And while we're at it, these aren't my pants
It's
either.
like, would you like a lawyer? Because you're killing it. You're killing it.
I'm not wearing my pants. June 2nd, 1986, in Volusia County, Florida, police detained Wuornos for questioning after a male companion complained that she pulled a gun on him and attempted to rob him of $200.
Okay.
She's
She's up and up
she's
the
in
fucking-
prostitution at this point, and he's claiming that she held him at gunpoint and tried to steal $200.
Sure.
Police did find a .22 pistol, which is interesting,
Yeah.
and ammunition under the seat where Wuornos had been sitting. So, 1986, South Daytona, Florida. Wuornos met Tyrea
Okay.
It's been pronounced both ways.
Okay.
Moore. I'm just going to call her Moore. Moore.
Okay.
And the two fell in love, moving in together shortly after meeting. This relationship would last 4.5 years and be the closest thing to a real connection that Lee would ever have. Badly wanting love and attention, Wuornos was desperate to keep her in her life. July 4th, 1987, Daytona Beach, Florida, Wuornos and Moore were detained and questioned by police regarding an incident in which they were alleged to have used a beer bottle to commit assault and battery.
Well, everyone's done that at least a few times. You ever been to
course.
Pullman? You ever visit Pullman, Washington when school's in? You see it all the time.
So basically, we've got 1986. She meets her girlfriend and they fell in love. 1987, she has one interaction with the police with her girlfriend where they committed battery with a bottle. And they were questioned by police. But I don't think she was ever charged. Okay.
So she's skirting the law.
Yeah, so 1986, 1987, she's with this woman. They were together for 4.5 years. Nothing happens. And then, on December 1989, the body of her first known victim, 51-year-old Richard Mallory, was found. He picked up Wuornos on Florida's Interstate 75. His body was found by a Volusia County deputy shot several times in the chest, a few miles from his abandoned car, in a section of secluded forest under a piece of rug. This is the only crime Wuornos originally admitted to committing, and claimed it was self-defense because he was trying to rape her. Okay, so although this was hidden by prosecution during the trial, Mallory had a history of sexual violence and crime around sexual assault. Now, side note here, in 1957, he reportedly broke into a Maryland woman's home, grabbed her from behind, and tried to assault her. After pleading insanity, he served a 10-year stint at a prison mental institution. The details surrounding Mallory's death that we will discuss in a bit, I feel, is what ultimately shows Wuornos' mental health decline and ultimately made it easier to convict her on all accounts.
So this guy was likely trying to harm her very much.
I think he probably was,
right.
And I think it triggered something in her brain.
Right, it's just one more piece of shit. But
right.
This is what happens when you spend a lot of time around pieces of shit.
Right.
Which is what that industry will generally bring you around.
Yeah. So her lifestyle isn't that, it's not very safe.
No.
Right, and it's not very wholesome.
Real quick, with time suck, holy shit. I mean, every time that we would get into the, and anything that had anything to do with prostitution, it's just the most dangerous profession, I think, by far. And if you're around truck stop guys in the 80s, 90s, I'm sure 99.999% of truckers were fine. But that shit was dangerous as fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's still just lovely, but, Anyway.
So, June...
I love my truck driver brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
They look out for people, generally.
Absolutely. Well, my grandpa...
But the 80s and 90s was a different time.
Well, my grandpa was a truck driver, and I learned a lot about truckers during that period of time. He was a long-haul trucker, and he wasn't like this at all.
Fucking honk if you're driving, baby. Scare that little guy in the Subaru right now. Get that guy the fuck off the road. Fuck that guy. I'll say this real quick. I know this is taken away, but truck drivers are the best drivers on the road. I'm not trying to kiss ass here.
No,
This is a PSA where it's like a lot of people think, oh, man, I see a truck. I got to get around him because he's going to do something dumb. It's like, no, you're the one that's going to do the dumb thing. Anyway, sorry. Digressification ended.
So after a period
Waka Waka disengaged.
After a period of 6 months, the body of her second victim was found on June 1st, 1990. His body was found in Citrus County, naked and shot in the torso 6 times. His name was David Spears, and he was a 43-year-old construction worker. Lee's claim that Spears attempted to cause any type of harm to her was a tough sell, as many people testified that he was an honest, good person who was, in fact, actually ensuring that his ex-wife was financially secure. So he was still taking care of his ex-wife, doing the things that he needed to do to make sure that she was taken care of.
Right.
So he was not a piece of shit.
At least not in that case.
At least not in that case,
aspect, yeah.
right. So another body was discovered in Pasco County within days of finding Spears' body. The third body was severely decomposed, so he had been dead a while, and could not be identified immediately, but it bore certain resemblances to the previous 2 discoveries. So the police associated this murder with the same killer, Aileen. So the body was wrapped in an electric blanket and was badly decomposing when it was found. And it was later ascertained that the body belonged to a rodeo worker named Charles Carskadden. The 40-year-old man was shot 9 times in the chest and stomach.
Fuck.
Yeah, so...
Then you know that they're dead at that point.
Right. Well,
unless they're a werewolf or a vampire, you're like, well, maybe that guy was a vampire.
And that's just it. You know, even in court, they question, if this was self-defense, why did you have to shoot him so many times?
Well, maybe they were still moving and shit.
Maybe.
I mean, 6 times seems like you've got all the... There's at least an organ that's real important that's been destroyed.
You know,
6.
I think unless the person is really, really high on drugs, you shoot them one time, they're going to be in pain. And they're going to stop doing what they're doing.
Right.
Doesn't mean they're going to keep stopping what they're doing, but it's going to stop them in their tracks when you put a bullet in their body.
Well, I don't know if this is in your notes, but people can deep dive all this stuff on other podcasts and stuff. But like, where did she get? Did she go for the head and then just shoot the torso? It was 9 times in the chest.
Yeah.
So it's just bam, 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 bam.
So
bam,
it was
bam,
9
bam.
times in the chest and the stomach.
Okay.
Yeah.
So none in the head?
No, not in this one. So his body was found in a secluded area of the forest, which was her... That's what she did. It was her MO. She drug him off and put him in the forest somewhere.
So this is her working too. She's taken these Johns out into Johns. I know all the terminology
Yes,
now.
you do.
I'm a time suck guy.
And she's taking them out into, private areas. And she claims in court, she claimed that they all tried to hurt her. They all tried to rape her. And it was all self-defense. But she shot everyone more than once. So...
Well, more than once, it makes sense. I mean, you're
9 times.
I know, but it's not like those stabbing things where it's like, and then they stabbed him 174 times. It's like, that seems like absurd. The gun thing, it's like, I mean, how many bullets are in the gun? Does she reload?
She's using a .22 revolver.
Okay, a revolver.
So, a revolver.
Well,
that's
6.
the gun that she uses.
That's 6, right?
A .22 pistol. I'm sorry.
A pistol.
A pistol.
So it has a magazine.
Yeah.
So, okay. That's probably 9.
Right.
So she probably emptied the fucking magazine.
She probably emptied it in the guy. Yeah.
Okay.
And she's, so basically...
I don't know things about guns, though, guys.
Like
I know that a magazine isn't a clip, and a clip's not a magazine, and you don't want to use the buffer or the filter with rotary girder. Shoot that at the buff guy.
Like the previous 2 cases, Wuornos originally stated that it was an act of self-defense, but later admitted she committed this murder in cold blood. She just killed the guy.
Fair.
So witnesses saw Wuornos in possession of Carskadden's car, and Wuornos also pawned a gun identical to the one belonging to Carskadden. Yeah, so that was evidence against her.
Yeah.
A vehicle belonging to a missing merchant named missing merchant seaman named Peter Seams was found crashed in July.
Seaman.
A seaman named Seams.
Seems a seaman, yeah. I'm ready for duty, Captain. What's going on now? Well, it's quite the seaman you got there, sir. You got quite the boat.
It was found,
fill in other nautical joke here. Where's the first joke?
It was found crashed in July of 1990. 2 women were seen abandoning the car, and Wuornos' palm print was found on the interior door handle. But the man's body was never found. So
I'm still kind of thinking about semen.
I know you are. According to the eyewitness description, the police suspected one of the women to be Aileen Wuornos. Peter, who was 65, had left Florida.
Now I'm thinking about Peter and his semen and goddamn, dude, what are you?
He left Florida for New Jersey in 1990, and his car was found on July 4th, 1990 in Orange Springs. His body was never found. During the trial, Wuornos continuously denied being responsible for his murder.
Semen.
Although there was very strong evidence linking her to his stolen car. Like the palm print on the inside of the car. How did it get there?
Right.
And the eyewitness is saying that these 2 women, one of them was Aileen. Similar to the other victim, Seaman was said to be a very good person, easygoing, and very religious as well. Go ahead.
It's hard to identify semen. I mean, you got to get down to the DNA. And I don't know how good the technology was at the time we're talking about this. Did they even have the DNA mapped for semen at that point? I don't know. Human semen? All right.
Are we? Can we move on?
I'm just having a good time.
Alrighty. The body
I'm a 14-year-old boy, and it will be the way I stay.
Copious amounts of semen.
Yep.
The body of a delivery driver named Eugene Troy Burris was found on August 4th, 1990. He had been shot 2 times, with a .22 caliber pistol. Troy Burris was found by police in Marion County, and he was reported missing on July 31st, 1990. And his body was already decomposing when it was found. Like the other victims, the body was found in a secluded area near some forest. Now, maybe these patterns are what make her to be considered a serial killer, I guess.
Right.
Because it's modus, MO, and all that
Modus
stuff.
operandi.
Yeah.
Why? I mean, if you're assaulted in this business, I mean, maybe it's like after a few times you'd think, and I don't want to, pretend like I know. But you would
can't know.
You would think you'd like,
yeah.
I don't want to go out in the woods anymore with some random guy.
Right.
And
Right.
It's like I have to keep. At some point, you're like, God, I have to keep killing these guys,
Well,
man. I should probably go work somewhere else.
Well,
Is there a
depending
fucking
on
good
how
waitress
many
job where I can get
experiences
some
that
good
she's
tips?
had that were good. I mean, she may have had. How many good experience did she have? You know what I mean? Maybe
Right.
how many times did she have clients
What's her
during
kill
every
percentage?
day? Right.
Yeah.
To the ones that she allowed to live.
You know what
so-
sucks though? It's not zero. Goodness. But if these guys deserved it, fucking A. But maybe she worked a shit ton and she found all the sociopaths in her little region and kind of weeded them out. Maybe she's the good guy in all this.
I doubt it.
She's Batman? All right, she's not. Okay, go ahead.
Furthermore, he was very well liked and said to be hardworking and a respected member of his community. When examined, two
Shunguts
two
in the house.
gunshot wounds to the torso were found to be the cause of death, and he was 50.
Just two?
Just two.
All right, well, they bounced
Not-
around
not-
inside his
not
chest
too-
cavity and killed his ass.
Not too bad. So on September, it did kill him, though, so obviously it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So on September 12th, 1990, the body of a former police chief named Charles Dick Humphreys.
I'm going to refrain from all of the
I know
things
you
that
are.
are coming. All right.
Okay.
We already got the semen out of our way.
So now we have Dick.
Dick humping the semen. Fucking, that's how you get semen. Is dick humping. Go ahead.
Dick was found bearing 6 bullet wounds from a .22 pistol to the torso and the head. So this is the first headshot. Okay. His body was found in Marion County. Dick was a retired Air Force major, former state child abuse investigator, and a former chief of police.
Whoa.
Yes. So
Wait. That's irony, I think. She's killing a guy that's going after people that caused her to be the way she is, maybe.
Right. Now, this kind of leads
Or
us into some speculation and very unproven things that
like
we
him
will
being a
touch,
monster himself.
that
and
we'll touch
his
on
poor
a little bit
families.
later.
So
Yeah.
hates that conspiracy. That might be true. It's
So
possible.
his car was later found in Suwannee County. So the killer's killer, Aileen, her seventh and final victim was found November 19th, 1990. Walter Antonio, a truck driver, had been killed less than 24 hours before his body was found. He'd been shot 4 times with a .22 pistol and was partially naked. When he was found in a secluded area, as Wuornos' pattern follows, he had 4 gunshot wounds to the back of the head. So
Damn.
4 to the back of the head. His car was found in Brevard County 5 days later. He was a police officer on reserves.
Shit.
Yes. So those are the cases there. Those are her victims. Now, I'm going to take a quick break here, and before we move into the trial and wrap this up. Aileen spent a lot of time after she was arrested, and she was interviewed by a man named Moore who did a documentary on her. She did a lot of interviews, and during this period of time, it's sad, but you can watch her psychological state deteriorate, because she was in prison for like 10 years, I think, before she was put to death by lethal injection. And so you can watch the deterioration of her psyche during this period of time. But she started getting very conspiratorial. And I find it fascinating that she kind of went down this road where she was saying that the police knew what she was doing. They knew what she was doing, and they let her do it. She says it time and time again. They were using her. None of this it's all speculation and it's all weirdness, but she claimed that they were using her to clean people up off the street. They let her go time and time again. They followed her around. They knew what she was doing. And the fact that she was using these incidences where she killed these police officers because they let her do it. because they
cleaning
were
up the streets of whatever community, it would be pretty statistically insignificant, the amount of killing that she did. But
and I'm just saying she was kind of out there.
Right. That real
but
quick,
in
that
her
reminds
own
me.
mind, she thought this was all self-defense. She was very angry at the police officers for not catching her and for not holding on to her and letting her do this, even though it was only, a year and a half that she went on this crime spree. So it's very interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, it just reminds me, during that time period, late 80s, early 90s, there was this kind of, not a ton of this, but if you've ever gotten into the conspiratorial world in any kind of level, you find people like Arizona Wilder, where there's some David Icke stuff in there. You know, if you look in David Icke, he interviewed her. But, she talked about dissociative identity disorder and people manipulating that. But then she talks about reptile people and stuff like that. And you're like, fuck, all of this is crazy fucking what? And way back in my early days of looking into conspiracy stuff, I just entertained everything. And so I delved into people like her. And there's a few others that wrote books. And it's kind of crazy that's kind of ringing the same bell with Aileen here. So it's just strange, but just something to think about.
It is interesting. I'm not familiar.
Illuminati confirmed is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, but
none of you should be. If you aren't, congratulations, you're a normal fucking person. You didn't follow the patterns of old script keeper here. Laying on the floor watching reptile videos about a guy named Muedo Quata. Quata talking about reptile people, and he had to eat flesh to join a secret society to learn about them.
You did introduce me to Michael Tessarian.
Yeah, any crazy dude. That guy.
That was interesting. I had a very difficult time.
I introduced Dan into it. Dan Cummins into him in the Secret Sec too.
Oh,
because everyone talks like him after you hear him for a second. You're like, you start talking like a fucking.
I didn't.
Right, you did. You did right, and then you're just like, fucking what? No, I don't think right. Michael Tessarian, you're fucking crazy, buddy.
Don't think I did.
I like your ponytail, but
him.
bro, come on. The Steven Seagal look is so 90s.
I was going to say Steven Seagal.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to move on here to the trial.
Okay. Nobody knows what we're talking about with these people.
On July 4th, 1990, Wuornos and Moore, the two ladies, were seen abandoning victim Peter Seam's car after they were involved in an accident. Remember
Mr. Seaman.
Remember that I said that his car was crashed?
Yeah.
Well, they crashed his car. They found Eileen's palm print on the inside of the vehicle.
Right.
The two women were together. So I find this.
So she's an accomplice to all this.
She's an accomplice to all this.
Huh.
And if you look back through the cases, two women were seen at least two of these incidences. So her girlfriend was part of what was going on.
This is some Thelma and Louise shit. Okay.
Yeah. So Rhonda Bailey, who witnessed the incident, provided police with a description of the two women, resulting in a media campaign to locate them. Police also found some of the victims' belongings in pawn shops. Wuornos' fingerprint or palm print that was found on a receipt in one of the pawn shops matched the print that was left in Seam's car. Wuornos had a criminal record in Florida, and samples of her prints were already in the database, so they were easily able to find that. So, January 9th, 1991. Wuornos was arrested on an outstanding warrant at the Last Resort Biker Bar in Volusia County. Police located Moore the next day in Scranton, Pennsylvania. So after what happened in this little period of time is they crashed Peter's car. There was a whole media campaign. I think there was like 4 days after her girlfriend Moore left. It was 4 days before she was arrested. Moore left her. She fled because she had been identified. And she left and she went to Pennsylvania.
Yes.
Okay. So she agreed to elicit a confession from Wuornos. The police picked her up and she's like, yeah, I'll roll over. I'm a girl. So she agreed to elicit a confession from Wuornos in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Moore returned to the police with the police to Florida, where she was put up in a motel, and under police guidance, she made numerous phone calls to Wuornos, pleading for help in clearing her name. 3 days later, January 16th, 1991, Wuornos confessed to the murders. She claimed the men had tried to rape her, and she killed them in self-defense. Interesting twist, though. In November 1991, Wuornos, after this whole thing in the middle, I wanted to just do a little quick side note because this is fucking weird.
Okay.
In November of 1991, Wuornos was legally adopted by a 44-year-old woman named Aileen Wuornos, who saw her photo in the newspaper.
Say what?
Yes. So during this whole process, this woman reached out to Aileen because she's a born-again Christian.
Come on, Aileen, will you be my baby when you're 20-something? Or however.
No, she was, at this point, 91. She was born in 1956.
When you're 35,
right,
and, or whatever.
So
you guys do the math.
Arlene adopted Aileen. Arlene never had any children. She raised horses. She had a farm. She was a born-again Christian. I listened to a couple of interviews. The woman was a little out there. Very, very interesting. The whole situation is weird. I wonder if Aileen Wuornos' counsel was even legit.
Really?
Because her attorney, at least her attorney during the man, when he was making this film, during this whole process, when she was still incarcerated, her attorney was weird. I mean, I listened to this guy, and
he had unorthodox. That guy. He's sitting up there perched like a pigeon. We don't know why. He's studying the law, I guess.
He had a zombie statue on the front porch of his apartment.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with that.
That he made with his own two hands.
Fuck yeah, brother.
And, he said, after my dog died, I needed somebody to protect me. So he's talking in a cartoony type voice, waving this plastic zombie hand in the air at the documentary cameraman.
You're looking into your own future.
Very, very interesting.
Does this guy have bushy eyebrows? Because it just sounds like what I want to do right now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So, anyways, Aileen Wuornos, or Prale, adopted Aileen Wuornos.
She's like 9 years older than her.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. She adopted her to give her a home.
If any of y'all would like to adopt me, if you got a bunch of money, a helicopter pad.
It was very
required.
interesting. I think there was probably a book deal in there and all kinds of weird shit. So, anyways, back to the case. January 14th, 1992, Wuornos went to trial for the murder of Richard Charles Mallory, her first victim. In the earliest confession to officers, Wuornos said Mallory picked her up while she was hitchhiking, and they later went to a secluded wooded area to engage in an act of prostitution.
That's the sexuals, you guys.
Yes. She and Mallory began to argue. Wuornos said she felt Mallory was going to, quote-unquote, roll her, or take her money, and rape her. She grabbed a bag in which she kept the gun, and the two began struggling over the bag. Wuornos prevailed, pointed the gun at Mallory, and said, "You son of a bitch, I knew you were going to rape me." To which Mallory responded, "No, I wasn't. At this point, Wuornos shot Mallory at least once while he was still sitting behind the steering wheel. Mallory crawled out of the driver's side and shut the car door. Wuornos said she got out of the car, ran around to the front, and shot Mallory again, causing him to fall on the ground. While he was lying there, Wuornos shot him twice more, went through his pockets, stole his money, concealed the body beneath a piece of rug, and drove off in his car.
But that right there doesn't necessarily scream self-defense.
Right.
When you raid the pockets, like, well, you almost hurt me, and I have the PTSD, but I have the wherewithal to see if you got any good credit cards in there. Can I fuck around with this guy's wallet? I don't know what I'm talking about. Go ahead. Sorry.
During later interviews with police, though, Wuornos went into detail about her self-defense claim. She explained she had offered to perform an act of prostitution, my goodness, the sexuals, with Mallory, and he drove to an isolated area where the two drank, smoked marijuana, and talked for about 5 hours. Okay, Wuornos...
Somebody didn't like what they were talking about.
Wuornos described herself as drunk. Around 5 a.m., Wuornos disrobed then, after 5 hours of conversation, to perform the act of prostitution. She asked Mallory to remove his clothes, and he said he only wanted to unzip his pants and didn't have enough money to pay for her fee.
Oh.
Wuornos went to retrieve her clothes, but Mallory whipped a cord around her neck, threatened to kill her like the other sluts I've done, quote unquote, and tied her hands to the steering wheel. According to Wuornos' later version, Mallory violently raped her vaginally and anally and took pleasure from her cries of pain. Mallory eventually untied her and told her to lie down. Believing he intended to kill her, she began to struggle. Mallory told her, "You're a dead bitch, you're dead." At this point, Wuornos found her purse, removed her gun. Mallory grabbed her hand, and the two began fighting over the gun. Wuornos prevailed and shot Mallory. Mallory kept coming at her despite her warnings, and she shot him twice more. Okay, 2 stories there, both told by Aileen.
Mm-hmm.
Which one's true?
Mm.
And so much had happened before that, you know.
I mean,
after that,
she's saying like serial killer meets serial killer. Well, she's not.
Okay,
she
so
doesn't see herself as a serial killer, but she's saying that this Mallory guy is.
This is her first victim.
He claimed to have killed. Like, I've done all the bitches. I killed a lot of bitches
right,
before.
and it was self-defense. The first time she said it was self-defense, but when that didn't really seem to please the police, she ramped up her story to make it sound a little more interesting. Okay, so here's what really happened.
Right. I just keep killing in self-defense. I just keep on killing in self-defense. I'm not going to try another line of work. I'm just going to keep on
absolutely
killing in self-defense.
Well, so
anyway,
there's a little
don't
more.
attack women, though. Also that.
Well, there's a little more here. So, although previous convictions are normally inadmissible in criminal trials, under Florida's Williams rule, the prosecution was allowed to introduce evidence related to her other crimes to show a pattern of illegal activity. On January 27th, 1992, Wuornos was convicted of Mallory's murder with the help from her girlfriend, Moore, for her testimony. At her sentencing, psychiatrists for the defense testified that Wuornos was mentally unstable and diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Why is my tongue not working all of a sudden?
Because it's late.
4 days later, she was sentenced to death. Wuornos' defense made efforts during the trial to introduce evidence that Mallory was previously convicted of rape in Maryland and served a sentence in a maximum security correctional facility providing remediation to sexual offenders.
Right.
Records obtained from the correctional institution showed that from 1958 to 1962, Mallory was committed for treatment. An observation resulting from a criminal charge of assault with intent to rape, and received an overall 8 years of treatment in that facility.
Right.
But
so he had a major problem.
Yeah. So in
these two problemed people.
Right. And in 1961, it was observed of, quote, it was observed of Mr. Mallory that he possessed strong sociopathic trends.
Yeah,
however, the judge refused to allow the records to be admitted in court as evidence and denied Wuornos' request for a retrial.
Must have pissed her off.
Yep,
Something
I bet.
Crazy.
I bet.
Is that injustice to you? Would you say?
Well,
the truth is the truth, and the truth should be always presented.
The truth should always be presented. Yeah. I think. And that's just my opinion. If it's the truth, it should be allowed in. But because he was
steaming dingleberry on the butthole of fucking justice.
Yeah. And maybe it's different now. Maybe our justice system is different now. I don't know. But there's more to the injustice of this. I'm going to share with you as we move forward.
Please.
So 3 months later.
Buckle up, guys. Here we go more.
We're almost done. 3 months later, on March 31st, 1992, Wuornos pleaded no contest to the murders of Charles Richard Humphreys, Troy Eugene Barres, and David Andrew Spears, saying she wanted to, quote, get right with God. In her statement to the court, she said, in part, quote, I wanted to confess to you that Richard Mallory did violently rape me, as I have told you, but these others did not. They only began to start to.
Damn.
They only began to start to.
Well, I mean, if that's the truth, then good for her. That's what guns are for.
On May 15th, 1992, Wuornos was given 3 more death sentences. In June 1992, Wuornos pleaded guilty to the murder of Charles Edmund Carskadden. In November 1992, she received her 5th death sentence. In February of 1993, Wuornos pleaded guilty to the murder of Walter Gino Antonio and was sentenced to death again. No charges were brought against her for the murder of Peter Abramsines, as his body was never found. In all, Wuornos received 6 death sentences. It gives me great comfort to know that they're going to murder that body 6 times. Yep. They're going to kill you, and they're going to kill you again.
I wonder if that's like a cycle. It's like, all right, first we poison them. Then we shoot him 40 times.
Jesus.
Then we hang him. What's left of the body, we feed to the dogs. When the dogs shit that out, we feed that shit to the sharks. Then we set those sharks on fire. And then we eat the sharks, and then we shit that out. Mm-hmm. And it's the circle of life. And that's the United States government. I'm not sure what I just said. Go ahead.
Wuornos told several inconsistent stories about the killings. She claimed initially that all 7 men had raped her while she was working as a prostitute, but later recanted the claim of self-defense, citing robbery and a desire to leave no witnesses as the reason for murder. But during an interview with the filmmaker Nick Broomfield, when Wuornos thought the cameras were off, she told him that it was in fact self-defense, and she just could not stand being on death row, where she had been for 10 years at that point, and she just wanted to die.
She said it was self-defense or wasn't self-defense?
She said it was self-defense, but she made this claim saying, nope, robbery, didn't want to leave witnesses. Basically, she's claiming that I just said that because I want them to kill me. I'm sick of being on death row.
Well, it seems like she's been sick of being on the earth since she was like 11 years old, since people did mean things to her.
Right.
And also because maybe she came to this earth.
Well, yeah.
With a really bad genetic roll of the dice.
Well, she definitely didn't have a good time while she was here.
Right.
So Wuornos' execution took place on October 9th, 2002. She declined her last meal, which could have been anything under $20, and she just opted for coffee.
I know. $20?
$20.
I mean, the government just
meal.
wastes. Actually, most prisons are private prisons at this point, but still, I mean, we waste a fuckload of money in the prison industry, and it's like $20. It's because people went extravagant. They're like, I want you to shove a steak in a lobster's ass and then put that in a sandwich of baby seals. I want deep fat fried in all the escargot. And you're like, well, dickhead, you're being killed because we hate you. We're not trying to fucking... It's like, get him some KFC and shut him the fuck up. That's why they made those weird bowls with the mashed potato. They just put it all in there. It's like the prison bowl. It's like, just get him all this fucking menu. Shut the fuck up. We're killing you.
It's like shepherd's pie with just all of it all together, just in a big lump.
It's like, what will we feed this guy? Who cares? Chicken? He said something about potatoes. Just throw it all in there. He doesn't like vegetables. Fucking, he's a criminal. Torture him. I don't care. Put more in there. I don't know what I'm saying.
Good Lord.
All right, back to
So basically, she declined her last meal. It had to be anything under $20, and she just wanted coffee. I don't blame the girl. Honestly, I'd be like, dude, just bring me a really good cup of coffee.
Right.
And her last words, I'm going to quote her. Quote, yes, I would like to say I'm sailing with the rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6th, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back. End quote.
She's talking about the Will Smith movie Independence Day, right?
Yep. Looks like it.
Like, that's...
I'm not entirely sure.
Kick the tires and light the fires, Big Daddy.
Will Smith and Jesus on June 6th. She's going to be
Jesus,
back.
I don't think is in Independence Day. He might have had a cameo somewhere,
I don't
I'm not
know.
sure.
I'm not real sure. But so she died at 9:47 a.m. Eastern Time. She was the second woman in Florida and the 10th in the U.S. to be executed since the 1976 U.S. Supreme Court decision restoring capital punishment.
There were probably a lot of women that were put to death before that, though, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, I know there was a period of time where they usually just... they did kill them. They did hang them and stuff way back when, but most women got life sentences. But you did have your occasional ones that were hanged. So
right. Well, they abolished it at some point because they were doing it a lot at one point too, I think.
Yeah. Well, there was a period of time where they were hanging them. They weren't even hanging them properly. They were choking them to death from a stick hanging from a tree.
Well, on a cruelty level, that's not nice.
No.
Okay.
So I'm almost done here. So after her death, Wuornos' body was cremated, and her ashes were scattered basically beneath a tree in Michigan by her childhood friend. Remember Dawn Buckins that we were talking about? Yep.
Yeah.
So she asked her to scatter her ashes. And then she had a request for Natalie Merchant's song Carnival from that album Tiger Lily to be played.
Right.
Yeah, so she did.
So Natalie Merchant
at her funeral.
And her agent were like, okay, this is a weird request, Natalie.
Right.
I don't know how you feel about this. And she's like, how much is a check? Well, it's a documentary, Natalie. How much? $5,000.
But
okay.
This was at her funeral, and then she did. She had it played at that documentary, the Eileen's Life and Death of a Serial Killer.
Right.
So,
I knew that. That's why I said that before.
No,
you said
Nick
that.
Broomfield's documentary. I know that you knew that. I was just bringing that up because our listeners may not have known
Right.
that.
No, I appreciate you covering my ass there.
Okay, so here's one thing that I want to add. Okay.
And then we're going to do our dipshit meter.
Yeah. So after killing 7 men sequentially, Aileen Wuornos earned the credit for being the first female serial killer from the United States. Okay? I
Which
find that
seems
interesting.
controversial, I'd
right?
say, yes.
But she did use a gun, and she did follow patterns. She didn't use a poison, even though they followed patterns. But still. Anyways, her troubled childhood and the events that led to the killings often generated sympathy among the public because, she had a fucked up life.
It did, yeah.
But this is interesting.
You still can't kill people. Well, you can defend yourself, of course, and murder people that it's not murder when you're defending yourself. But you can't.
Yeah, but you can't defend yourself by shooting someone 9 times in the chest.
Maybe
7 different people.
Right.
That's not.
That's where it gets weird.
That's
where
weird.
It's like, well, after the first couple, it's like, well, after a couple bad experiences on the job site, whatever it is, it's like, well, maybe new job site, maybe a new job.
So this was interesting. Her IQ was established at an 81.
That explains so much.
Right. In the low, what they consider low, dull, normal range. So an IQ at or below 70 is generally accepted as mental incapacitation.
Severe mental impairment, I think.
Impairment.
Let's go with that.
Okay, there we go.
But basically, the average IQ of the average American is 100, or about 100 or so. It has been for a little bit.
Okay.
And so a standard deviation in IQs is 15. And so that's almost 2 standard deviations below.
Wow.
So that might explain something. I don't know.
Right.
Doesn't mean necessarily.
Right.
For sure.
Well, following the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling in Atkins versus Virginia in 2002, the mentally impaired cannot be sentenced to death. And this was following her stuff. So
so she wouldn't have been put to death.
She would not. She would have gotten life for ever life if that would have happened prior to her sentence.
Well, what do you think about that? Do you think she got? Was it good to put her to death, or should we put her on an island somewhere?
I don't know. I think
padded walls and.
I think honestly, she needed She needed counseling for one. Additionally, I don't think she even wanted to be here.
Right.
I really don't.
Right.
So
and
I think
how much counseling gets you away from a lifetime of wanting to.
And I think
stop the suffering.
I think her death sentence gave her relief after. I mean, she even admitted it. She's like, I hate being here. I don't want to be here anymore.
It seems like a lot of people that when they kill people, like a lot of serial killers. Somebody shared this like a stand-up bit with a comedian, and he was just like, yeah, they retire. Like they're like, I'm looking to be caught at some point, and it's a retirement. And it's like, yeah, we're gonna kill you. They're like, yeah, that's probably good. Yeah, that's probably fair.
Right.
Oh, thank goodness, I can take a break after doing all my work of murdering folk.
Right.
But she wasn't a sadistic person necessarily. It does seem like when you go back to killing a lot, there's something. But there's no. Let's get into the dipshit files, and we'll talk about this a little bit more.
Okay.
The dipshit meter time. Ready?
Yeah.
Dipshit meter, engage.
The dipshit meter.
All right, so here we are. We're going to look at the danger side of the dipshit meter first. And she's not an Albert Fish by any means. She wasn't cruel. She wasn't really smart. She wasn't really, she's not jerking off on the bodies and stuff.
No.
And so, but let's start one at a time. Let's start with brutality. So we gave her a 2.0. That's actually her highest score of all of the 4 that we have.
Yeah, it was very low. She basically shot them. She pulled out a gun. She shot. Of course, she shot them several times.
She emptied a magazine or two in a few of them. Yeah.
And I'm sure they lived through the first shot because I think only the last one was in the head.
Right.
So which could have been a kill shot, but the rest of them, I mean, they experienced pain.
Yeah.
But she wasn't doing it to hurt anyone on purpose.
And she wasn't like reveling in it.
There was no torture. There was no lead up. These guys didn't know what was going on. She just pulled out a gun and shot him.
Right. So brutality, 2.0.
Yeah.
Now let's talk cruelty. Cruelty, 1.0.
Right. Very low. Because
she just wasn't into it for that.
No, she wasn't out to torture anyone. Again, it wasn't about cruelty and degradation and all that. She's just like, motherfucker, you're dead. Boom.
Right.
So she was efficient.
She wasn't random either. She was picking just guys that she thought were
trying to
shitty
rape
Johns.
her.
Yeah.
She thought they were trying to rape her.
Right. Triggered in some way. So now let's talk her criminal mind.
Criminal mind.
We also gave her a 1.0 in criminal mind.
Yeah, there wasn't much to it. She would find somebody that triggered her and she shot them and then dumped them. That's it.
Same spot kind of, or just the same
No, it
area?
was out in the woods.
Right. So it didn't matter to her. She wasn't finding the same spot.
No, and she was in the state of Florida, so that's where they were. But
gators got them.
Nope. She was just putting them out in the woods, and then in 2 instances, one was covered with an electric blanket, and the other one was covered with a piece of carpet. That's it.
The critters are going to find those.
Yeah.
The gators can sniff them out.
They're not hermetically sealed.
No. So now let's talk depravity. Depravity, once again, 1.0, because she wasn't jerking her lady ween and,
Nope, she wasn't cutting the bodies up. She wasn't doing anything. She was nothing. She was literally like dragging them, dropping them, and leaving.
Right.
That's it.
And so this is this is amongst the most famous American female serial killers. Mm-hmm. And she has a 1.25 on her danger scale.
Yep.
So as of now, the least dangerous of the serial killers we've covered.
Unless you're a middle-aged John.
Right.
In 1989, 90.
In Florida.
In Florida.
Right.
On I-76 or I-75.
Right.
That's where the danger sat.
And we don't know how many times she didn't kill people for having sex.
Right.
So maybe it's a certain kind of sex that you tried. So it's like, hey, your kink might get you killed in that time period with this one person. So very not dangerous to most humans. So 1.25.
Yeah, very low.
But her legend is pretty high. Her infamy, which I like, we're calling it infamy from now on because I don't want to. We're not celebrating these fucking assholes. They're dipshits for a reason.
Right.
Notoriety.
But we have 3 parts to this, as most of you know, if you've listened to the other 2.
Yeah.
So before she was caught, it was basically nothing. You gave her a 0.5.
Right. Well, because it was nothing. It was a very short period of time. This didn't last for a decade or even, it was a year to a year and a half.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was very short. One man was declared missing, and I think he was gone for a week or 2 before they found him. It wasn't very long.
And nobody gave a fuck, really. They weren't really looking for him hard, right?
It wasn't. These people weren't missing long enough. None of them were in a deeply advanced stage of decomp by the time they found the bodies. None of them were. So it wasn't that long before they found them.
So she just had a bad string of months.
And it was a short period of time, so there wasn't a lot of news. There wasn't a lot of media about it. So nobody really knew. However, once the court case began, everything began to change.
So after the trial, you gave her a 4.5.
Yes, and that's because media behaving badly.
Once again, that's like the theme of pretty much any show we ever do.
Of course, her crimes were legit. They were legit crimes.
Yes, you're not supposed to kill people, but in defense you can, obviously. If somebody's trying to rape you, kill them.
I just don't think that...
But 7 times.
I just don't think I cannot...
They're coming right for me again, and again, and again, and again.
I cannot get behind this being self-defense. I can't. Maybe the first one, but not the consecutive ones after that. Plus, under the circumstances, the media was coming out with some crazy ass stories.
Right.
And I didn't throw a lot of them. I didn't throw any of the crazy stories. I tried to stick to factual stuff here. But there's so many misrepresentations out there in the tabloids. Even if you look at that documentary, Aileen, Life and Death of a Serial Killer.
Okay.
It's just shy of 2 hours. It's a good documentary. There's some cringe-worthy, brutal moments in there where you're going, ugh. So, because people are saying, I never said that, or I didn't do that, or they're lying. I want to know. How do I get them to recant?
Right.
You can't.
Lawsuits, but once the people see it, they see it.
Yeah. So there's also stuff in there. You'll get to see the degradation of her psyche, because she does go through and she talks about a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of footage of her.
There's a lot of interview footage. Yeah. Okay.
People were fascinated by this. That's why the 4.5.
Right.
They just went nuts.
And there's movies and.
Well, that leads to the infamy. So you got to before the trial 0.5 because nobody knew anything and nobody cared about the guys that were dying. Right. After the trial 4.5, it exploded because people were like, "Holy fuck! Women don't usually do this."
Right. Well, they don't do it with a gun. That's for sure.
Right. They poison the fuck out of dudes like a good lady should.
Yeah.
But the infamy and the way we look at infamy is like how much has popular culture caught on to it? How long has the legend lived, and how much has it grown since when it first started, or how much is it sustained? Because of 4.5, it's hard to grow much beyond that. But you gave the infamy 4 for Mrs. Wuornos.
Yeah. Well, there's 2
movies.
There's
a video game.
There's
the collector's card set.
Kind of like Jeffrey Dahmer. I'd like to know if you can go anywhere in the U.S. and mention Aileen Wuornos' name and people are like, who? I don't think it's. I think it's because it was a huge movie that Charlize Theron played in.
But she her name's kind of hard to pronounce. I had to write it down so I could get it.
Well, so you go out in public
stupid
and you
people
say,
like me don't know stuff.
You go out and you say, "Have you seen that movie Monster
Yes.
with Charlize Theron?" And they're like,
is
"Fuck
fair.
yeah, I have."
That is very fair.
So they know the story.
Remember that one time where Charlize Theron did not look her best? They're like, "Oh yeah, that one movie about the serial killer lady." That's all you have to say, I think. Yeah.
They know.
Very rude of me to say I know. But okay, so that's both of our dipshit meter things.
Yeah.
So now it's time to go on to dipshit number 2.
Dipshit number 2.
Our second story is about Amy Dugan Archer-Gilligan, and her nickname was Sister. She's a nursing home owner and serial killer from Windsor, Connecticut. She murdered at least 5 people by poisoning them. Now, I say at least because they actually dug the corpses up and investigated, and she was for sure convicted of these people.
But there's dozens of people
Oh boy, we're going to get into that.
Eee.
One of her victims was her second husband, Michael Gilligan, and the others were residents of her nursing home. So, Amy Dugan was born on October 31st. Dun, 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 dun,
dun, dun.
She was the Halloween lady.
Nice.
18...
No guarantee that you're going to go off and murder folk, but it makes the story more interesting. 1873
to James Dugan and Mary Kennedy in Milton, Connecticut. The 8th of 10 children. She came from a very large family.
No guarantee that you're... Never mind.
In 1897, Archer-Gilligan married her first husband, James Archer, and they had a daughter named Mary in either December 1897 or 1899, depends on the sources, because nobody can seem to agree on that.
Okay.
In 1901, the couple became live-in caretakers for an elderly widower named John Seymour. Seymour lived in Windsor, while his sole remaining relatives were in California. After Seymour died in 1904, his heirs rented the house to the Archers and allowed them to turn it into an elderly home named Sister Amy's Boarding Home for the Elderly. However, Seymour's family decided to sell the house in 1907. So, using their own savings, the Archers purchased another home in the same location and established their new business there, the Archer Home for the Elderly and the Infirm. Okay, so
they're doing good deeds.
Yeah,
they're good folk in the community, it seems.
Archer's Home for Elderly People and Chronic Invalids was the first name, and then they switched it over. So
Archers, huh?
Yeah, they were the Archers.
Just the tip. That's how you get ants.
Is that what? Do you want ants? Because that's how you get ants. Residents could either pay the fee of $7 to $25 a week, or a flat fee of $1,000 for being taken care of for the rest of their life.
Oh, I got it. What the shit, Lana? That'd be a good name for something.
What the shit, Lana? Okay.
I think so. Go ahead.
Now, the thing here I find interesting is the individuals that paid $7 to $25 a week lived.
Oh, no.
The people that paid $1,000 for being taken care of for the rest of their life died quickly after. Yeah, so, she had a contract that she had to fulfill with people she wanted the money. So they were also encouraged to make Archer-Gilligan beneficiary
That's
of
spooky. Real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
I wonder if people that are in old folks' homes right now are like, please pay the bill, you guys. If you don't pay the bill, I wonder if that thought goes through people's minds. And I wonder if that thought's going to go through my mind in the future.
I used to
Please become a patron at SkatCast.com.
I used to work in long-term care.
Right.
I was a nurse in long-term care.
Right.
Remember?
Yeah.
And I worked with...
Did you kill a bunch of people?
No,
okay,
no.
Good.
But I did work with the elderly.
Did you kill a couple of people?
I killed no one.
I know.
I worked with the elderly, and I worked with end-of-life patients. I worked with people that had Alzheimer's and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it was a concern. But it wasn't. They weren't concerned that they were going to be killed. I don't think anybody.
Civilization makes you feel a little bit more safe than that.
But they were.
Not much,
they were concerned. A lot of them were concerned. The ones that were cognitive, cognizant. They were concerned about their bills and making sure the family was paying the bills, because if something went wrong, they're like, "What did they pay their bill?" It was a concern.
Damn, dude.
So
That's not okay.
No,
That's
and
really not.
I consoled more than my share of individuals going, that is not something you should be worried about at all. This has nothing to do with the bill.
Right. And I bet
nothing at all.
And
all I need to do is go into the storage room over here and go get you a new razor. That's all.
Done.
And it's completed. It's finished. Right. And when we're done shaving, I'm going to take you to go eat lunch.
Yay.
Yay.
Okay.
And we get to sing Wheels on the Bus go round and round down the hall while I'm
No, that's
you down.
condescending. That's
No.
okay.
She asked for this one lady. I'll never forget her. This one lady asked for that every time I put her in her wheelchair and we went down the hall.
That's cute.
And we'd sing. It was. I really enjoyed that job. I loved that job so much.
I bet you were good at it too.
Yeah,
I've heard a lot of stories. I will say, I'm
sorry, I totally digressed all over this,
my
didn't
fault. I stopped it, and sorry, guys. But I bet 90, 95%, 99% of all the places that do these things for the elderly were founded by people that wanted to help.
Oh, yeah.
Are staffed by people that want to help.
Oh, things changed. Really, things changed for the better after this situation.
Like I want to throw this.
It became regulated after this. Yeah,
okay.
They started regulating long-term care facilities, and this wasn't just for this reason. But after this occurred, this and many others were being brought to light, and they started regulating these services.
Okay.
Yeah.
I undigressify. Go. Please continue.
Now I got to figure out where I was at here.
Oh shit! I ruined the digressification.
Let's see. Oh, that's right. They were encouraged to make Archer-Gilligan beneficiary of their estates so that they could manage the finances more easily after they passed. So she was having them sign their entire estate over to her and her husband. So she attended church weekly and made generous donations to the Catholic Church and was generally thought of as a pillar of the local community.
It's good if you give some charity out. That's a good way to make your grift look better.
So now this is where things start to kind of go downhill a little bit. The Archers had their first legal troubles in 1909 when the family of a resident sued them for $5,000. $5,000 in 1909, claiming that they had kept their relative in unsanitary conditions when he was found with bed sores and dried feces.
Sheesh.
Another resident who complained against his living quarters around the same time was removed after Amy had him declared insane and admitted into a mental asylum.
Wow.
Right. So things were getting a little weird around 1909. This whole thing started, I think, in 1907. The Archers advertised their service in the local newspaper. Boarders would pay a weekly fee, blah, 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 So, unfortunately, many chose the latter, and that's that $1,000 option. So once that $1,000 was paid, there was no other money coming in, and that pretty much sealed their fate in these locations, which is really, really sad.
Very. So
the elder care outside of the family was too new an enterprise for regulatory agencies to monitor the quality of care. But in 1909, the McClintock family of West Hanford sued the Archers for the lack of care given for an elderly family member. And that $5,000 is equivalent to $150,000 today.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Archer.
And that was when that was written. And as of today, it's now like $450,000.
Probably, yeah.
Monetary policy.
No, I did the calculation.
Oh, for today? Oh, it's for 2022?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just did the...
Well, tomorrow it will be $450,000 because we've got a lot of geniuses.
Well, so
stuff.
Archer, her husband, died on February 10th, 1910, only a few weeks after she took a life insurance policy out on him. Yeah.
That's not suspicious at all.
Just a few weeks.
She was probably one of the first ones.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because now it's like, we all know that's suspicious. But people were like, oh, that makes sense.
Well, his death...
1909? I don't know.
The weird thing is his death was attributed to Bright's disease. And Bright's disease is like a catch-all term for kidney issues. It's kind of like...
What an optimistic name for something that probably hurts like fuck.
Right. Well, it is painful. And there's several unrelated kidney conditions that could be Bright's disease. But anyways... he had never been diagnosed with any kidney issues prior. So this was it just came on. He signed the paperwork and it gave him kidney disease. And then he died. Archer-Gilligan continued to manage the retirement home alone for 3 years with her and her daughter. And then she turned around and she married Michael Gilligan, a widower who had repeatedly shown interest in investing in her business. She's like, oh, you want to invest, bitch? All right, we'll put a ring on it. Mm-hmm. And he did. 3 months later, on February 20th, 1914, Gilligan died from what was determined to be severe indigestion.
Or bad decision-making previously with the marriage thing there.
Severe indigestion. And he died of a stomach ache. A will written during their brief marriage dictated that all of his possessions would go to his wife and none to Gilligan's 4 adult sons from his previous marriage. This will was revised after Archer-Gilligan's conviction and determined to have been forged by her. So mortality rates also increased dramatically during the among the residents of the nursing home after Archer's death. While only 12 people died from 1907 to 1910, when he was alive, 48 died in a 5-year span between 1911 and 1916.
Yeesh.
Yeah.
And those were all the people that paid the $1,000.
Probably.
Yeah. It's weird.
So,
it's like she had an accountant's brain for.
I know.
It's like, well, this
She's like,
person's
well, this
life is
one here-
worth this much, but they're.
It was
only paying-
probably color-coded, color-coded 3x5 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So among the deceased was Franklin R. Andrews. He was a healthy 61-year-old man who had been seen gardening in the home just a few hours before he died. Andrews' death was attributed to a gastric ulcer, also gastrointestinal issues.
Suspicious.
But his siblings were suspicious, and more so after they learned from Andrew's past correspondence that Archer-Gilligan had been pursuing him for money. She was pressuring him for more and more money. It was later found that many other nursing homes' dead residents had passed away after donating a large sum
Suspicious.
to Amy's funds.
So they do what she asks.
Yeah.
And they, well,
So Nellie
spooky,
Pierce...
man. I don't want the old folks home for me if possible. So please subscribe. But you can buy a t-shirt so the government doesn't take care of me and none of my damn kids.
Franklin Andrews, the 61-year-old who died of a gastric ulcer, his sister Nellie shared her suspicions with the local district attorney, but then she was ignored. So she took it to the newspaper, the Hartford Courant, which ran a story titled Murder Factory. So this is, nothing has been proven. It was just, see, this is what the media does. Right? So the police then, it did encourage an investigation.
Right.
The police exhumed the bodies of Archer-Gilligan and 3 former tenants, all which tested positive for either arsenic or strychnine. Drugstore employees confirmed that they had sold large quantities of arsenic to Amy or some of her tenants acting in her name. So she was sending these, could you imagine? In your own mind, you're like, I'm going to kill you. I need this poison. I need you to go to the store because I'm going to...
sadistic.
Isn't it?
That's some Nazi shit.
Yeah. So she made them go get the poison that was going to kill them eventually, unbeknownst to them.
Right. By itself is cruel.
So supposedly to kill rats and bedbugs in the home. That was her excuse.
I mean, that's a mean name for people, but whatever.
So at the same time, honey.
What? I don't know. I mean...
At the same time, a female private investigator named Zola Bennett was hired by the Connecticut State Police as an undercover
secret agent
person in the house as a resident, gathering evidence of the living conditions inside and Amy's swindling of her residence. Archer-Gilligan, Amy,
but then he
was arrested.
Some tea.
She was arrested and tried for 5 murders, but 4 of the charges were dropped before sentencing. On June 18th, 1917, she was found guilty of the remaining charge, Andrew's murder, and sentenced to death. However, she appealed and was granted a retrial in 1919, where she pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. So she said, I was crazy for all of these. I'm not now, but I was crazy for all of these years.
Gee.
She was found guilty again, but this time
they didn't buy it.
She was sentenced to life in prison, so she wasn't going to be hanged. In 1924, she was declared temporarily insane and transferred to the Connecticut Hospital for the Insane in Middletown, where she remained there until her death in 1962 due to natural causes. So basically, she
lived a long life.
She lived a long life. She was cared for. It was just terrible. So basically, this woman, she killed many, many people. I'm going to go here. We'll cover the symptoms of the arsenic poisoning, but I'm going to cover a few things here. But she killed people for profit.
Right.
So didn't you have...
This is like Harold Shipman, he was like Dr. Death, I think, is what they called him in England.
Okay.
And we covered him on Time Suck.
Yeah.
And he killed, I want to say, a couple hundred people.
Well, this woman killed all these people in 6 years.
That's crazy, because he did that in his career, and I believe you check out Time Suck or any other kind of deep dive podcast for that. But yeah, I think he killed a couple hundred, and he did it in a similar way. He got caught by signing money over to himself, having them, forging documents.
Was he poisoning them?
Yeah.
Or was he injecting them with, medication that
medication for sure
stopped their hearts?
Yeah, I think it was medication. I did a lot of research on a lot of different folk. I'd have to refresh on But it does remind me of this every time we're hearing it. It's like, gee, because it's not super, like, I guess there is some violence, too, depending on what the poison is.
Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that.
She didn't pick the nice ones, apparently.
No. Well, what was available, strychnine and arsenic, are both
right.
horrible poisons.
Harold Shipman had quite a bit better stuff, I think.
So,
but who knows? Maybe they were exactly that, and I'm just a moron, and I forget things because I smoked too much dope or something. Or you're dumb. Go ahead.
Her known victims, February 10th, 1910, James Archer, her first husband. He was 50. And then the next year, Hilton Griffith, 81. In 1912, 15 unnamed people were killed. In 1913, 13 unnamed people were killed.
Wow.
1914, we've got February 20th, Michael Gilligan, 58, her second husband. Charles Smith, 87, on April 9th. May 29th, so just over a month later, Franklin Andrews of 61.
Some guy that overcharged her at the butcher store. She's like, fuck that.
December 3rd.
Have some tea.
Alice Gowdy, 69. And then with unspecified dates because her record keeping was shoddy, 5 unnamed people. 1915, 7 unnamed people. 1916, Maud Lynch. She was 33.
Damn.
Yeah, she was one of the helpers, and she died.
But she drank some of the tea.
She died of stomach problems.
How were they poisoned? Was it like in a bundt cake?
5
or something?
unnamed people. Basically, she was suspected to be responsible for more than 60 deaths in total between 1910 and 1916.
Right.
So that's where we're at.
That's crazy.
As far as how she poisoned them, I could not find... I had a hard time finding any information on this.
It had
woman.
to be through food or drink.
It had to be through food or drink, absolutely.
Well, this leads us to the actual kinds of poison.
So
right?
arsenic...
Can you smell it?
Arsenic is undetectable. So arsenic is... you can't taste it. I think, arsenic you can't taste, you can't smell. It just kind of disappears into food. The symptoms of arsenic poisoning, though, they go from red and swollen skin changes, the colors, you can get warts, you can get lesions, there's swellings of, boils and that sort of thing. Abdominal pain is number 1, though. Abdominal pain so intense, watery, bloody diarrhea,
oh God,
vomiting with blood, abnormal heart rhythm, cramps to the point where you can't move, tingling in the fingers and numbness in the toes, tingling and numbness in the fingers and toes, constant sore throat, headache. But essentially, you go blind, you have seizures, and you end up dying. I mean,
so
it's
a slow death.
It's
a
very painful death. Now, depending on the dose that you get, she slowly poisoned these people because these people. Well, not all of them. A couple of them, she gave them massive doses and they died the next day. A lot of these people, though, were sick for days at a time. So she was poisoning them. And the thing with arsenic is it's a metal. So you don't know how much it takes to poison somebody. You just have to and it stays in the body. So when you give them the poison... what will make one person super sick and then they start improving is going to kill this person. So basically she just kept giving it to them until they died.
So she was experimenting.
Yeah. And
she probably was really good at it by the end, I'm sure.
So symptoms...
She's like, well, he's about 180. I think that's about 4 teaspoons.
The thing with arsenic is...
4 teaspoons. That's probably enough to kill fucking an army of
it's probably
yaks.
an army, yeah. So symptoms of acute arsenic exposure generally occur the beginning within 30 to 60 minutes. So within half an hour to an hour after consuming something that has been laced with arsenic, you start getting abdominal cramps.
So all these people would have known.
They would have known something is wrong.
Yeah.
But
they were sick too.
They were elderly people. Yeah. Well, so anyways, that's pretty much where you're at.
So
arsenic,
the lesson is, let's get some robots.
Day.
We need robots in the future to take care of us when we're
horrible
old.
Way to die.
Nice, soft-spoken robots that they have padded. They're not mean looking. They're not like kill the old people. They're like, I will wipe your butt and I will not judge you.
I'm happy to wipe your butt. I have Nerf arms. Do not fear me.
There was when I was going through my education and I was learning in this one hospital in Colorado, somebody said something and it triggered a memory a couple of weeks ago because I saw it in a meme. And I was like, I remember when this lady said this to another person I was working with. The person that I was working with made a comment about one of our patients having a bad day. And you're taught to be, you shouldn't have to be taught to be empathetic. You should be empathetic going in. And that's why you're doing the job.
Yeah, empathy.
This woman was not as empathetic as she should have been.
Okay.
And she was complaining to the head nurse, saying, they're giving me a hard time. She's giving me a hard time. This woman didn't want to take a bath, and she was exerting the only control she had and the only power she had left, and that was in her decision making. And you have to honor that.
Very much so.
Although you still have to bathe them, but if it means waiting an extra day, wait an extra day.
Right.
It's not that day is not going to hurt anyone. Give it an hour. Oftentimes they feel better because they made their choice. Come back an hour later and say, how about now? Do you think you feel better? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to go, yeah. Anyways, this other lady that I was working with said she's giving me a hard time. She doesn't want to shower or bathe or whatever. And the head nurse looked at her and she said, she's not giving you a hard time. She's having a hard time.
Right.
And I saw those exact words in a meme the other day or a couple weeks ago. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. She's not giving you a hard time. She lives here.
Right. This is your wage.
She is having a hard time.
But this
and
is her
you
life.
need to understand where she's coming from and where she's at. Try and put yourself in her shoes and, move from there. Anyways,
that's her life too, though.
That
She's
lady,
like, this sucks. I'm not getting paid enough.
well, and she left.
They threw
She
poop
ended
at
up.
me.
She ended up leaving. So, anyways,
It's complicated. Nuances.
yeah. But people like Amy Archer-Gilligan should never be allowed anywhere within anybody else's food,
Right.
caring for
God.
anyone. Do not give people like that power in any way.
But how do you determine?
I know.
Without them doing it. That's why there is no utopia in our future, my fellow
No,
humans.
at least it's regulated now. There's
Right.
checks and balances within these systems, these locations and these businesses that you have to meet these requirements.
Yeah.
So I'm thankful for that, and I know I had to work to meet those requirements, and it's hard.
Right. That makes sense.
It's hard, but it's necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyways,
Well, is it dipshit meter time?
I think it's dipshit meter time.
The dipshit meter.
All right, here we are with the dipshit meter time. Our final dipshit of the day. She's actually higher than Monster because she killed maybe 60 people.
Well, she killed 60 instead of 7.
Yeah. I mean, the gun is different than the poison for some reason.
Oh, I
but
wonder.
the poison is much more ridiculously violent in some cases where it's
Some
like, holy fuck,
people-
you can suffer.
Some people will keel over really quickly and die of heart failure, and other people will lay there and vomit and shit blood and seize and be unable to move and be stuck in their own mind for days before they die. So
Eh.
horribly cruel.
Okay, so let's talk about Amy Archer-Gilligan's brutality.
Yep,
Brutality.
So you gave her a 3.0 on brutality.
I did.
And but she didn't stab anybody.
Nope.
She didn't punch anybody.
Nope.
We don't even know how big she was. She probably wasn't like just
She was
choking
very
motherfuckers
small. I think she was only 5'1".
out. Okay.
She was a very
so
little
she wasn't
lady.
choking out,
They called her
War One veterans.
They called her diminutive.
Civil War veterans. Diminutive.
Diminutive.
That is a word that's not used very often anymore.
Super tiny.
Very tiny. Well, but she was still brutal because of the kind of poison that she
Yes.
used.
She chose rat poison.
Fuck.
And it's absolutely horrendous to die of something like that. It's painful.
Well, what the fuck are we doing that to rats for? What are we doing here, humans? We're not nice to earthlings.
Actually, although you will still find that stuff in rat poison today, they've changed the ingredients now.
It's a more
And
loving way to kill a fucking...
They basically dessicate.
Yeah.
Instead of, they dessicate. They dry out from the inside out.
Good God.
Yeah.
That's way better.
It's still,
Sign me up for
it's
that.
It's still horrible. It's
Yeah.
better. It's better than getting stuck in a mousetrap on the wrong end and then slowly suffering to death.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah. So, which is why I prefer catch and release traps.
Right. Fair enough. It's just weird living on the earth.
I know.
Sharing
I know.
this space
We all
with
have
other
to share.
earthlings. All right. So now let's talk about cruelty.
Cruelty.
So cruelty 3.0.
Yeah. And
Because of the same reason with these fucking poisons, really.
It wasn't just the poison.
Right.
It was the mistreatment of these individuals that were infirmed They were older. A lot of them were unable to care for themselves, meaning they can't bathe themselves. They're incapable of getting in and out of bed without assistance. They can't dress themselves without assistance.
So you need to be a patient person to deal.
You absolutely do.
And they have to
They
have a
can't
whole lot of
feed.
patience,
They might have choking issues, swallowing problems, that sort of stuff. Maybe even cognitive issues where memory problems, all of this with a woman who doesn't give a shit. And the fact that they brought those 2 cases against her for cruelty. These individuals they're incontinent. They can't care for themselves. They can't use the toilet like we do because they just can't get out of bed. So these people were just laying in their own filth, covered in what happens when you lay in your own filth. You end up with sores, which get infected. It's just absolutely terrible. So the cruelty was extremely high. Then she got tired of caring for them and she poisoned them, which was hopefully quick, but most of the time not. And it was long, drawn out, and extremely painful. And for money.
You can imagine the smells of that place.
Oh, yeah.
But you can imagine the sounds of that place.
Oh, horrible.
That is horrible. So now let's talk about this piece of shit's criminal mind.
Criminal mind.
So 1.75. She wasn't a genius by any stretch.
No,
she got caught. She was just living in her own little bubble. It seems like she was, in her own little world, kind of queen, empress of the universe.
Yeah, she wasn't very smart about it.
And normal people came in. They were like, "What the fuck are you doing, you dumb asshole?"
Yeah, when you have person after person after person after person dying in your care, and they are continually signing over their estate to you, somebody is going to say something, and it's going to be noticeable.
Well, Shipman only got away with that a few times. Fry got away with it several times, but that's what happened to him. He got bold with certain amounts of numbers because he was killing people that were really. I mean, he was a well-known doctor, I believe, in the town, too, or at least a well-trusted. I
remember him. He was, and even after his conviction. Or
people were like, he was a wonderful man.
Yeah.
He was the best man at my wedding. We named our son's middle name after him. Yeah,
I remember.
But 1.75 because she really wasn't.
She wasn't that smart.
No.
I mean, she was going about doing these things, but she just wasn't that. She didn't have the criminal mind. If she wanted to do this and the longevity of torturing these people, she would have stolen items from them, maybe, instead of having their entire estate signed over legally, because there's paper trail there.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb.
Oh yeah, anyways.
It's pretty dumb.
Yeah.
Imagine a person in the situation of this Amy Gilligan motherfucker that had a criminal mind of a 5, or had a cruelty and a criminal mind of a 5.
You would have Albert Fish.
Yeah, he would. He would. All right. So now our last little bit: depravity.
Depravity.
So depravity, very low.
Extremely.
0.5.
Yeah.
So lowest of the day for Amy.
Right. And I gave her that because once they passed, although, she just kind of ignored them while they were in the actively dying process. Once they passed, she called the coroner and had them taken away when they were cremated or services were held, and they were treated with respect by family and those that cared for the bodies post-mortem. So there was no depravity. She wasn't,
right,
that we know of.
There was no
anyways.
Lady Ween jerking on the bodies and stuff.
She wasn't rolling around in the shit left over after they died, as far as I know.
Well, good.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah. But overall, she ended up getting a 2.06.
Yeah.
Which is higher than the monster, Aileen Wuornos, and is actually up there with a couple, at least one of the serial killers that we talked about before. I think it's up there with Guyan.
It was all because the sheer number of people that she murdered in a 6-year span. That's 10 people. That's every month and a half she killed someone for 6 years, basically. And the brutal way she did it. Poisoning is not pretty. It never has been. And to the best of my knowledge, it never will be.
Imagine being an employee there.
Ugh.
Where you're like, how come everybody dies here real fast? Like that guy was in the garden and now he's dead.
Just and yesterday he was planting daisies and now he's pushing up daisies.
Yeah, Ba-dum-bum. All right, now let's talk about why this lady doesn't have any notoriety. So before her trial, before people knew about what was happening, you gave her 1.5 on our notoriety scale for that. And why is that?
Because first of all, she was running a end of life home. It was for the elderly. So when people passed away there, it wasn't a big surprise. They were there because they were at the end of their life.
But there were some suspicious circumstances.
I gave her a higher number simply because the families were getting very suspicious, especially once they realized that all of the will and the whole estate and the house and everything, all of a sudden, they've been here for 4 months, Amy, and now you own our entire family legacy.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
That doesn't make sense.
Right. So, and that's why I gave her that prior to the court, the trial. I gave her that number because people were going,
No.
There's something's not right here.
You don't get my fucking horse that I've been riding since I was fucking,
You don't
18.
get grandma's lace gloves.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
Right.
So, but then after everything came out in the trial and she was discovered, 3.5 became a big deal.
It was because she was
60 fucking people potentially.
The sheer number of people. Additionally, how it was done. Additionally, the fact that she was a well-known person in her area, churchgoer, donated a lot of money to the church, and she was a super tiny little thing. So you look at this 5 foot tall, probably 110 pound woman at the very most, soaking wet when you look at her pictures. She looked like a mouse. She just looked so, I don't know, little. She looked little. To have her kill this number of people and the way she did it.
Well, she was basically Mother Teresa. That's why they called her sister. Is because she was, doing all these things that a Mother Teresa type character would be doing.
She was supposed to be doing God's work.
Well, God does kill 100% of the things he creates. He or she or it or probably nothing at all.
Yeah.
All right, so how about the infamy? In the infamy scale, 0.05. Nobody's ever heard of her.
Nobody's ever heard of her. Now, she's up there. She's kind of listed with other poisoners, which is pretty much women in our history. But there was one play which was turned into a movie called Arsenic and Lace, I think. And that's pretty much it. That's also a book.
Okay. So you gave her, 0.5. So there's almost nothing on her.
Well, when you say the name...
Yeah.
Now, when you even say, the woman that killed 60 people in the early 1900s at the, long-term care facility, they're still like...
Lizzie Borden, did she do that? They're like, no.
Yeah.
I only know one old-timey murder girl.
Zero infamy.
It doesn't help
woman.
That her name is Amy Archer-Gilligan, sister, Esquire, the third. Like, all of those names don't help with the legend. Jeffrey Dahmer. It's not as easy to spell as you might think, but it's fucking right there. It's very, very short on the syllables.
Amy Dugan Archer-Gilligan, also known as sister.
I just call her sister. Well, 1.83 is what we gave her on the notoriety scale overall. So she's really not known at all. Even though at the time it was a big deal when
it was
they
a
found
huge
out.
deal. The trial was a huge deal because people were completely aghast at what they learned.
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you on the other side of this little soundy thing.
Dipshit Files Conclusions.
All right, so now we're going to actually make the comparison between the two stories that we just had. The reason I chose this is when we think about serial killers, we think about the ones that we've covered and 500 more.
Right.
Nobody really takes into consideration that women can be serial killers.
Be afraid.
Sadistic, brutal, cruel,
and which blows
evil.
my mind because we can be all of those things.
Yeah, everyone knows. But we do ignore it. We do ignore it publicly. We're like, no, sugar and spice. Remember that shit?
Oh,
it's like,
goodness. Well, I know that.
Not all.
I don't think I could ever be sadistic. Honestly, I don't have it in me. But can I be cruel? Fuck yeah, I can. I know I can.
Vengeful.
Yeah.
Don't fuck with the...
I was married before you. So yes, I can be vengeful. Even though I wasn't.
Right.
I could be.
Right.
I felt that way, but I didn't act on it.
Well, good.
Anyways, the comparisons between these two. So we've got two women, 100 years apart. One woman killed 60 people in 6 years. The other woman killed 7 people in a year and a half.
So both very similar, like, ratio.
Kind of, I guess.
If Aileen Wuornos would have had a few more years, it would have been up there. I mean, if she could have had the same amount of years, it would have been all right.
They had different upbringings because Amy was from she was from a poorer family, but she was still from a well-known kind of family in that area, and they were church-going. And Aileen Wuornos came from a completely different situation.
Very much so, yeah.
One woman poisoned people and gave them a slow, drawn-out, painful death, 60 of them. The other woman quickly ended lives of 7 men by shooting them to death.
Quick and
Neither
easy.
of them were very depraved.
Right. They didn't
They
revel in
didn't.
the fact that they were killing these folks.
No, there
It was a
wasn't.
means to an end in a lot of ways.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And I have read a few stories, which I'd like to bring in eventually, of women who killed that reveled in the depravity of the killing.
Yeah.
But it's not as common.
Right.
It's just not.
Fair enough.
And I don't know why.
Well, that's probably a topic for another time.
But anyways, the comparison there. Do you have anything? That would be my comparison.
One seems like picking on the weakest people in society. It's almost like just going to a little, where they have a bunch of babies and just picking them off kind of thing. Where it's like they can't do anything. They can't defend themselves. So we're a weak way to do it. Aileen Wuornos was more, she was living in the jungle, basically. It's a fucking dangerous place to live when you're in that kind of profession the world that she fell into.
Right.
And so, very different when it comes to that. Amy Dugan lived in a bubble
She did.
of her own design where she was God.
Yep.
And probably enjoyed that bit. I can only imagine how controlling she was. Aileen Wuornos, I feel like in some sense she was killing to have some power.
See, and I agree with you there. Amy Dugan,
She didn't have power in her life.
Amy Archer-Gilligan was reveling in the power that she acquired, and she wanted more and more, and she was kind of cruel about it. Aileen Wuornos was more trying to take back a power that she had never had.
Yes.
So...
Yeah. So a very distinct contrast between the two.
It's interesting for my brain because when I hear the name Aileen Wuornos prior to researching, I was like, oh God, fucking crazy serial killer lady. And then I did some research on her and looked into it. And although...
Tragic life, showcasing the tragic world that is that world.
Now,
that underbelly.
Trying to take into consideration, though, there was very little proof about her childhood.
Right.
Very little proof about the stories that she told,
True.
except for the fact...
just run with shit.
Right.
Yeah.
Because she was a notoriously dishonest person. Her brother, he wasn't anything like her, although he did commit suicide. So, No. That was her grandpa that committed suicide. Her brother died of cancer. That's right. He was only 21 when he died of cancer.
Right, that's right.
There's very little evidence that what she said happened actually happened. A lot of people denied that it ever happened. So it's really hard to say. But it doesn't matter. She believed it to be true.
Right. Yeah.
That's the world.
That really is
in
all that
her
matters
head.
for motivating a human.
And really,
what do they believe?
In all honesty, our existence, what we believe to be true, is our reality. It really is.
Absolutely.
So if you believe that your life is a living hell, your
Welcome to
life is
hell.
a living hell.
Yeah. If you're a victim in this world, then you're a victim to everything. And that is your mentality. That is your lens to view the world.
Right.
Indeed.
And there are absolute victims in this world that they don't view themselves as victims.
Right. And that's what therapists are trying to do, is trying to get people to see. It's like if you keep yourself in this situation, which is out of people's control a lot of the time. But they're like, if we can trick your subconscious into thinking that you are not a victim no matter what happens to you, that you are here on a ride and you're just having an experience, whatever it might be.
Whatever it
here's
may
some
be.
Buddhism, here's some Stoicism, here's some good luck. Life is fucking hard. We're sorry. We don't know either.
Yep.
As soon as I'm done with this session, I'm going to go get fucking drunk at the bar because I don't know either. But I do want to ask you, between Aileen and Amy, Aileen has a 1.25 overall for her danger.
Yes.
And Amy has a 2.06.
Yes.
Do you feel that's right? I feel like it's right.
I feel it's right, and here's why. In order to become a victim of Amy Archer-Gilligan.
Yeah. That's too many. Pick a name.
I know.
She's got like 15.
The only way to become a victim of Amy Archer-Gilligan is to enter a period of your life
Esquire.
that everyone enters. Period. Everyone. I don't care who you are. You're going to enter a period of your life, if you live that long, where you will become infirm and need assistance from others. Period.
Lots to look forward to. Thanks, Wayne.
It's part of the cycle.
Indeed.
If you live long enough, you're going to go back to a period of time where you need assistance with your day-to-day.
Yep.
That's just the way it is. So she's a danger.
It's that circle of life thing or whatever.
She is a danger because she is a danger to everyone in those circumstances whose family trusted enough to put them in there. And she was one of 2 in that town. I'm sorry, one of 2 in that entire county that did this at that time.
So everyone sent their...
Yes.
Yeah.
There was only 2. There was only 2 in this area at this time.
Sadly, these are people, and I don't mean to say it in a flippant way, but a lot of times people are just kind of thrown away at this point. And that's...
It's unfortunately the weird...
We talk shit about people...
I know.
In the elderly community, and it's really disheartening because it's like all of us go through that. We should respect. They have the best stories. They probably have the best.
The reason they're going into this facility. This is something that I learned when I was working in the facility before, and something that I acquired. It's, I guess, a perspective I acquired. The reason they're going in here is because they successfully lived long enough.
They've leveled up the most.
They've been here.
Yes.
They've gone through so much and they've experienced so much that they now have the opportunity to be doing this.
Yes.
So take that into consideration if you ever feel like talking down to somebody or looking at them as if they're less than or weaker than you, because, motherfucker, they have been here and they've been through 10 times more than you have.
Right. And they might have been badasses at your age.
Yeah, no
and they're
shit.
looking at you like, what a bitch. What a punk bitch. But look at it like this. Instead of looking at an old person and saying, oh, look at the old person, let me help him, and thinking of him like a child, think of them as wisdom bags.
Yeah.
Because that's what you're going to get. I mean, you squeeze them a little bit and the wisdom comes out.
A little fart.
Of whatever hole's got the least amount of hair blocking it. And wisdom bag for the win. And so be nice to the wisdom bags. We should have little places that we honor the wisdom bags.
Oh, that was good, honey.
Thank you.
And very true, too.
Well, that's why I'm not laughing, because it is a factual...
So the victims of Aileen Wuornos was a very narrow area. You had to be a middle-aged man. You had to be picking up hitchhikers, and you had to be looking for a sex worker.
Right.
And that's it, pretty much.
The odds were very, 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 very low.
And it was only on I-76. As far as I know, it was on one highway.
Right.
So
less than lightning.
Yeah.
Or more than lightning. Whichever
it
way
is.
that goes.
Her
she was like,
public danger was...
You had a 50% chance if you put in your wisdom bag into a place... Then
what'd you do with your wisdom bag?
Well, I put them in Amy Gilligan Archer's fucking sister Mary. I put her in her place, and she's probably gonna die. Yep. We only got $1,000.
And you just lost all your family inheritance.
Yeah, but $1,000, even $1,000. She would do that for $1,000 in the 1910s, 19 to 1916. Yeah. Yeah. That's a fuckload of money.
It is. It's a lot of money.
I mean, not still like $1,000 is a lot of money. That's certainly not true.
I didn't
anymore.
do the calculations for that, or the $7 to $25 a week. I didn't do those calculations, so I don't know what that would be. But it was worth it to her to keep those people alive because she kept getting paid.
Right.
If you paid the $1,000 for end of life care, she's like, yeah, and end of life.
Fuck.
I know.
Fuck. Well, welcome to Earth. So if you haven't heard that story, that's something to look forward to.
In my personal opinion, I view Amy Archer-Gilligan as a much more dangerous person than Aileen Wuornos.
She is.
I just do.
On the scale, I mean, she's more brutal. Mm-hmm. She's way more cruel.
Way more cruel.
And but both of them had dumb criminal minds.
Yeah.
It could have been a lot worse. Yeah. Imagine Amy Dugan with a high criminal mind. Fuck. If she was going Joseph Fritzl and had like an underground umbrella corporation, like tortured. All right. Well, and then real quick, the last thing that we'll talk about here on our 2-hour podcast.
2 hours?
2 hours
My goodness.
Is the notoriety between the two. Really, we have... Is this right? Wuornos is a 3?
Uh-huh.
And Dugan is a 1.83.
I still think that's correct.
I do too, because she scared the shit out of people when it came out.
Yeah.
But then it just went away immediately after that. Because for some reason, nobody gives a shit about poisoners.
No.
Women poisoners are like... they're the big body count people when it comes to serial killing and shit.
Yeah. But their own children.
Yeah, right.
You know, and oftentimes, as we will see, because I'll be I'd love to do a month of poisoners just to bring them in, so to kind of share, because there's many different ways that they've poisoned.
And the downloads just drop.
I know, and they're like,
we want butchers, give us axes. But, I'm not going to poison a guy, I want to stab a guy.
I would love to talk about that, because there are so many of them.
I'm interested.
And it's crazy, because oftentimes they end up poisoning themselves, too, because they get it on their skin. they get it on their skin, or somehow, they ingest it accidentally over time because they're poisoning people. They're around it all the time. They're touching it all. They're messing with it. It's going in their sinuses if they're using a mortar and pestle and grinding that shit up. And they end up dying of their own killing mechanism. Not all of them, of course, but it's not unheard of.
Fucking A. Maybe we should do meet 6 of them or something, and we'll rate all 6 of them and see.
Maybe I could do a quick.
See if there's a difference between poisoners.
Maybe I can do 6. I'd love to maybe do 6 in one episode.
Yeah,
if
that's
we
what I'm
could
saying.
just back to back.
Yeah.
I suck though because I'm like, oh well, you got to hear this one story about this one person. I suck at that.
But we're not doing that next week.
No.
On the other side of this sounder, we'll tell you what we're doing next week.
Yeah.
Dipshit Files Preview, Episode 4.
UFOs is what we're doing next week. You're like,
I'm not sure what that sounds like.
yeah. I think you were trying to be Mr. T for a second there.
I'm not sure. I went to say
you were
something.
pitying a fool, and it came out like
I
that.
went to say something, and it just kind of came out as I don't know what that was. Anyways, there's that now.
That's good stuff. But
UFOs.
Monique and I want to talk about UFOs, and we have a different scale
Yes.
than our dipshit file meter for the brutality, or for the danger and the notoriety.
Yeah.
But we're going to try the same kind of meter thing for the oddities of the world and for extraterrestrial kind of shit, paranormal.
I'm so excited to get involved into the oddities.
It's gonna be fun.
I'm so fucking excited.
We're very weird, so it should be right up our alley.
I mean, I really enjoy true crime, very much so.
Yeah,
it's a passion of mine, but
we'll
it's
be back.
so dark. I can only do so much before I start walking around here like. Ugh.
Yeah, we'll probably only do 2-3 of these a month as far as true crime. I don't even know if it'll be that many. I'm looking at her and she's like, but no, we'll see what we do. From there, we'll go into some
I
other
think
stuff.
2 is good. 2 is good. Although, we could do this the whole time. You just may not like who I am in about 3 months.
Yeah, for our own sanity, we're not going to do it every single week. 3 at the most, probably only 2. In those months where there's 5, maybe we'll do something. No. But
we'll see.
We'll have some fun. We've got some real fun ones coming up. We've had a lot of interesting conversations in the planning and kind of coming up with the different topics that we want to talk about and that we might know something about. And I don't know shit when it comes to serial killers. Really, I'm not a true crime fan. I just researched the shit out of it for Dan. So, but I am a fan of good writing, and there were some good books in there that I read.
We got it. You have such a cool library of stuff now, don't you?
I do.
Nice.
I have a very full library. I have a red flag library about all the terrible things. The FBI's like, well, this guy can't be safe.
Yeah.
This guy certainly can't be up to good things.
Well, if anybody looks at my Google search history just in the past few days, they're like, symptoms of arsenic poisoning.
Yeah, dude.
Let's see.
Not to mention
strychnine, woman poisoning. What is this woman married? She is married. How long has she been? 14 years? Oh shit.
We got to watch this guy. Everybody watch this guy. In the meantime, you've got like a Fight Club kind of laundry list of things that you order too.
Well, I know there's
you
like
make soap, and
I make soap and I make my own lotion. Oh my gosh, how terrible that is!
So it's like,
funny.
okay, this lady's running Fight Club, and her husband better watch out. So, Scooper Troopers, I'm about as healthy as I've been in a long time. So just keep that in mind. But I don't have much of a life insurance policy. So, but you can help change that. Patreon SkatCast. Become a littermate for $1, or become a scat cat for $5, or an inside scooper for $10. And each of those have their own little perky perks.
Yes.
Really, actually, littermates get nothing. They just get our love. I just said, I love you, littermates.
Yes.
That's what you get.
We love them.
And I don't think that's very valuable, but you might.
I don't know. His love is pretty valuable, you guys.
I wouldn't think so. Only my dog thinks so.
It's kind of stinky sometimes.
It is stinky love. It is stinky love. All right, well, that's it for us, you guys. This is a 2-hour podcast. We didn't know it was going to be 2 hours.
I had no idea.
But, it might not be 2 hours next time. It might be 19 hours next time.
Yeah.
All right, so thank you guys for listening to SkatCast Materials. Our podcasts are out there. Every Tuesday, we have the SkatCast Show. Every Wednesday, we have the Dipshit Files that you're listening to. Every Thursday, Dave and Angus do stuff, and it's always stupid. Well, we appreciate you. Patreon people, you can check out our Inside Scooper podcast. It comes out every Monday. And then, of course, there's YouTube stuff, which comes out really every Monday as well. SkatCast TV. It's once a week. And YouTube's mad at us or something, so we're kind of like tentative about YouTube.
We're still trying to figure that out.
I've got so many videos I want to put up, but whatever. They don't.
And, if you want to join us on Facebook, look for the
Shitbox.
The Shitbox. If you go to SkatCast Podcast Facebook page, the Shitbox is connected. And there's always cool stuff in there.
But it's a very small group. We want to keep it nice and tight. You know, it's a small group. We want to keep it, if you're going to come in there and be like, I'm here to fuck shit up. I mean, you're more than welcome to. We'll see what happens.
We have there's a bunch of great people in there.
There
and
is.
It's funny and
so don't come in there with a sour ass attitude. They're wonderful humans that live in our shit box. And we want to
we love our turds.
We want to keep that's right. I'm a turd myself. I spend a lot of time in there just sniffing. Just looking around, sniffing.
Oh my!
I have problems.
You do.
People that are tuning into this just for true crime are like, I don't like that guy at all.
I don't know if he's talking about sniffing turds.
That lady knows her stuff, but that guy just interjects the dumbest shit. The dumbest shit. Well, if you'd want to know why, check out every Tuesday SkatCast, and that's why my brain works the way it does. Is the first few minutes of that show every week. All right, thank you guys.
Insert fart sound here.
That's right. All right. Well, I've been the script keeper,
and I've been Mrs. Script Keeper.
Mrs. Script Keeper, Mr. Script Keeper, Mrs. Script Keeper.
Yes.
We'll see you in the future. It'll seem like the present.
Dipshit Files.
Bing bong.